Media Group Station. Official home of the Sixers, Flyers, Union, and the best Eagles talk in Philadelphia. 97.5, The Fanatic.
Good morning. Thought I'd help you wake up.
It's 6 a.m. and you're listening to The John Kincade Show, Philadelphia's longest-running sports talk morning show on 97.5 The Fanatic, Philadelphia.
Let the party begin!
The show starts now.
And a pleasant good Wednesday morning wherever you may be. This is 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Kevin Cooney along with Dee Lynam. We're filling in for the John Kincade Show crew that has taken a much-deserved week off for the holiday week on this Wednesday morning. A little rainy out there if you're just getting started. Good morning, Dee. How are you?
Excellent.
This is not an
I got a little Java.
You found a coffee place that was open, which is
and
more
they were
than I did.
shocked to see me. I was the first customer when it opened, and the woman said to me, "We have never, in all the years you have lived in the neighborhood, seen you at this hour."
And
I hope it stays that way.
I was just going to say, it's a one-time deal.
Yeah.
Brendan Gunn is on the glass, and obviously we got our YouTube audience up and running as well. So we'll hope to have a little fun here this morning as we go along, break down a couple topics. We have Adam Schefter scheduled up at 8 o'clock. Keith Pompey from the Inquirer will join us at 9 o'clock to talk Sixers before they play in Orlando tonight here on 97.5. The 6 a.m. hour is sponsored by Bradford White Water Heaters. Bradford White is here for the pro. All right, so Dee, you and I were here yesterday for Best Show Ever, and we had the Nick Sirianni press conference on, and not everybody, obviously, with the holiday is going to be listening or to every word that's coming out of the coach's mouth. But you and I brought this up yesterday. There was a lot of chatter about the fact of how little fun they've appeared to have and how miserable it seems like they are. This is going back to the Jeff McLean article from last week where it looked, an NFL executive said they looked miserable when they were 10-1. Imagine what it is now. Well, you have A.J. Brown who walked out without talking to the media. You had Devontae Smith, and we'll get the Devontae and Jalen's quotes later. The more I thought of it last night, I almost think that maybe they're feeling the moment at this point. And I think that's what's weighing them. As much as, we've discussed this in the past about how getting back to a Super Bowl is difficult. There's a reason why teams that lose Super Bowls rarely get back there.
Which, in fairness, seeing this, I have new respect for the Patriots doing what they did for the stretch that they did it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Patriots, and
ice ran through, obviously, Brady's veins and Belichick's.
And yet when you have the top coach of the time and maybe of all time and the greatest quarterback of all time.
Even though in this moment he's questioned of.
Right. It's
he
who
doesn't
made
know what
who.
he's doing. Yeah.
Right. And so, I wonder if the pressure really has built up to a point where it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy of they're being so tough on themselves at this point and making it miserable on themselves that this is playing into what's going on at this rate.
I think it could be part of that, but I do think there's a disconnect happening. And again, I don't know where your self-goals take over for team goals. Usually that's when I think the problems happen.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, when you're thinking of yourself as opposed to
and
the group.
For teams that are, generally speaking, that are winning, even if you internally feel, like a little more targets, you can't say it out loud because good things are happening. But somehow with this team who is still succeeding, the way they're succeeding is they put themselves in harm's way first, and then they pull themselves out of harm's way. And so because it's not copacetic, these side things are showing themselves without total explanation.
Right.
Some explanation.
We
but
talked
not
about yesterday.
total.
Right.
I think A.J. Brown probably is the one who you see or feel the most disgruntled of individuals. I was reading Marcus's column
Yeah.
today?
Marcus Hayes from the Inquirer.
Yeah. And in the beginning, I'm thinking, are you serious? He's patting Nick on the back for being what I would consider not conducting himself properly on the sideline. But for him, he thinks it's the first time that Nick's not trying to be the best friend to everybody. I have a difference of opinion with him, but that's fine. That's
Right.
what we're here for. We can disagree.
And I would say, and let me bring Brendan in on this. Brendan, good morning.
What's going on, Kevin?
I-
D,
I-
what's up?
Merry Christmas,
Merry
buddy.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I would say that the head coach who has made his name as a player's coach suddenly now trying, if you believe what Marcus wrote this morning, to become the tough guy. That's difficult to do because you can lose a lot in that sense.
Yeah, it's like someone pulling the rug from out underneath you, right? Like you think you know somebody, and then it turns out they're trying to be the hard ass. Now it's kind of hard to take your word serious when you were the guy that had my back no matter what. They're cracking down on me. It's like a conflict of interest. Now, can he switch to that kind of coach? Sure. But with these players right now, they're going to be taken back by it at first, you'd think.
You would think. And
I think I would compare it to raising kids. You need to know what you want to do, how you want to do it, and you got to stay the road. I mean, you stay in your lane.
Yeah, you got to
You
keep
can't flip-flop. I want to be your best friend today, and then, tomorrow I'm all over you because you're not taking care of this, or this. It can't, it doesn't. I'm just going to tell you, it can't work both ways. It doesn't.
It's hard.
So switching is never, ever. If you gradually become something different because of age,
right.
because that happens, we see it. The coaches who get softer as they get older, we see that, but it has to do with just being in the business a long time. We're talking about a guy who's 3 years into this, fourth now.
No, it's third.
That is his third.
It's
wow,
his third.
I just gave him an extra year, which I shouldn't have.
Well, he'll get an extra year. That's the one thing. Like, I think people think when we discuss this, we're saying Sirianni should be fired. We're not saying that.
Ever. No.
Ever. The guy's made the playoffs the first 3 years. Now.
And I always say to Kev, like him or not, his winning percentage would tell you can't do that right now. Whether he wins because Howie has put the right roster together and schematically he has done the right things.
And
but
he also had two head coaches as assistants or as coordinators the last
that are now
previous 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
One of whom he'll see this week.
Yes.
That was a weird answer.
No, but I know what you're saying. Like in a sense
meaning Gannon, his answer to the Gannon stuff.
That was a weird answer because
Very
it felt like he was trying. We'll get into that later on. Felt like he was trying to distance himself from Gannon a little bit while still kind of hugging him. Yeah, it was really weird. The answer that got our attention yesterday was the question that was asked. I got to say,
Feeling good?
Well, about feeling good. It was asked by John McMullen about how it looks like you're not having fun, Nick, or your team's not having fun. Well, and he tried to promise us something.
I can promise you we're having fun when we win. I know that 1,000%. There's a difference between having fun and not being satisfied with what the product was on the field, right? The standard, not meeting the standard. And so when you don't meet the standard, you're always constantly going through your mind of, hey, here's what we could have done better. Here's what I could have done better, right? It always starts with you looking at yourself in the mirror. And what's interesting about that is I think that's always going to be a dilemma because once you set a standard, your goal is not to stay at that standard. Your goal is to get a little bit better from that. And so it's always going to be interesting like that. And there was definitely some things that, there were some sloppy things that happened coaching, playing yesterday that need to be better. And so you think about that to yourself, like, man, what could have been here? But make no mistake about it, I know our guys are excited to win. We're excited to win a football game. But again, it's that hunger. It's that hunger of wanting to, be great and be perfect. But there's got to be a balance, right? There's got to be a balance of, having that, hey, getting the win was the most important thing, and then also that drive to get better after every time you step on the football field, whether that's practice field or the game field.
Nick Sirianni yesterday, and I know people say that sometimes we in the media parse everything. In this city especially, the Eagles get looked over with the magnifying glass on everything. But this is not like, we have veteran reporters who were in that locker room on Monday night who are not what I would call flamethrowers. These are guys who are pretty quiet and respectable and are not just in it for sensationalism, reporting how miserable people are. So this idea that everybody is perfect and happy and
well, I think there's always a red flag goes up for me when somebody has to sell it so hard that we're having fun and balancing standard versus, satisfaction. If you have to sell me that hard,
then it's not happening.
You're covering up something. And I just felt yesterday it was uncomfortable for me to, even in listening to that answer, he couldn't get himself out of it. He couldn't just answer the question and get out of it. No. He had to keep circling back. He said standard 6 times.
You know what that almost felt like? It felt like a guy trying to run out the 15-minute clock that they have on a press conference. Like, the longer I let this answer go,
then I don't have to answer another question.
Am I being unfair with that, Brendan?
No, I think that's right on spot. Like, that's what he was doing. Oh. And it's kind of like you never ask somebody if they're having fun if you can tell they're having fun, right? Like, you just know. It speaks for itself. It doesn't look like the team's having much fun out there, especially when you're winning the game. The final seconds are running out, and the head coach and the star wide receiver are yelling at each other.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you could see it with your own eyes. Yeah, look, Derek Gunn's not a flamethrower, and he's the one who kind of started with the people complaining about the offense being predictable and all that.
Yeah.
I don't think McLean's a flamethrower. Tim McManus.
And you're talking about 3 guys who have covered that team,
for
that
years.
organization for years.
Multiple coaches, yeah.
And I wouldn't call any of them like me people at all.
No, and there are people in this business who are like that, who I would kind of go, okay, maybe they're over-exaggerating. No, these guys are not.
These 3, no.
And yet, maybe part of it is, and you and I kind of talked about it before the show, again, in the self-reflecting last night, because I stayed across the street, and there wasn't much to do last night. No sports last night at all.
There was a lot of NBA, actually.
Yeah. My hotel didn't get
there you
TNT.
Go. I was just going to say, there was a lot of NBA played last night.
But no local sports.
No.
Maybe we are being too tough a little bit. Maybe they're being too tough on themselves because every team in the league has this. I don't want to say.
I'm not going down the path. Well, I mean, you can, but
right.
I'm going to say no. And I think Sirianni has brought some of this on himself by his own antics and his own actions. And now, because his team has had struggles, and let's face it, this does tie back to the fact that you won a game against the Giants, 33-25, and you are 11-4, but you're now 2 regular season games away from playing in the postseason, and the play that you continue to show week after week after week is not going to get it done probably 75% of the time in the postseason. So that's really all this is about. This isn't about I don't have to like you. I just have to think that the product you're putting out there is going to be a winnable product when the postseason becomes one and done.
And that's fair. And most of the teams that we talk about that win Super Bowls in December, late November, December, ramp up. And the Eagles have seemed to go the other way.
It seems.
And if you want to look, I mean, I spent the morning looking at teams that have, that are you would consider in the same ballpark as the Eagles. Okay. And yeah, the Eagles have 1 home loss and 1 loss to a non-playoff team. And that's kind of the criteria a lot of people use for how you're going to do in the playoffs.
Oh, I see. So like the Jets loss is a bad loss.
The Jets loss is a bad loss. And the Niners loss to the Vikings and Bengals, and both them right now would not be in the playoffs. Okay. Yeah. But the idea that most of those losses for other teams occurred early in the year. The Bengals might have been
if Joe didn't go down.
Right.
Whatever.
But the idea that most of those occurred earlier in the season, and that the Niners until this week were ramping up and playing their best football is why people have this image of they're far better prepared than the Eagles in a playoff run, or the Ravens are.
Nobody wants to play the Bills right now.
Right.
They're playing. They had that terribleness.
They had 6 losses. They have 4 of them against non-playoff teams.
Right.
I mean,
but their stretch was early.
Right.
And Josh seems to have righted his own ways.
Oh, yeah, and they're playing their best football right now. And they're at a point where, the Eagles have not played their best football, and the fact that they only...
And we haven't been able to say they played their best football
all year.
Not one day, do we say.
Again, the 2 best wins on paper...
Miami and who else?
Tampa? Maybe the Rams. Maybe out of L.A. now looks a lot better.
It looks a lot better now, but back then the Rams weren't playing well.
No. And they had just gotten the wide receiver back, Cup. Cooper Cup had just come back at that point. So I mean, but the fact that the Eagles are not playing good football, and they let teams hang around that you would say, the Commanders games, the Giant game,
or falling behind, or
right.
in this case, blowing a big lead and giving up 22 second half points.
So the question we have, and it's basic, the basic question is, how are you feeling, and are we overreading the whole situation? Because I know there's some people, look, I see it on the YouTube chat this morning, Mopar, player-coach disagreements happen all the time. This is only an issue now because they're 1-3 on their last 4. That's fair, but it's also the timing of it going into the playoffs that I think is what makes it. And look, I think that it's happening with the Chiefs in the same way. Everything with the Chiefs is under a microscope because of the fact that it's happening at this time of year.
The difference was Andy tried to calm the situation.
Yeah. Nick is the
Our
one
guy is instigating the situation.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge difference.
So that's kind of our question of the morning. Are we being unfair, too difficult, whatever, and reading too much into the situation at this point with, are they having fun, or do you think that this is a sign of a major problem? 610-632-0975 is how you reach us on this Wednesday morning. We're glad you could join us. Brendan behind the glass. Dee and I are here till 10 o'clock when the return of the Tunis this morning. So we'll have some fun as we go through. This is 97.5, The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
So much fun. I'm Brendan Gunn, and this update is brought to you by Mattress Firm. A new year calls for a new bed. At Mattress Firm's once-a-year sale and clearance, save up to 60% on select mattresses. The right mattresses matter, and the Mattress Firm will find yours. The Eagles improved to 11-4 with a win on Christmas Day, which is tied for the best record in the NFC. With that being said, many fans are left unsatisfied with this team's recent performance. Head coach Nick Sirianni spoke to the media yesterday and assured us this team is, in fact, having fun despite the tension.
I think that definitely starts with me, quite frankly, right? And there was moments in that game yesterday where I felt like I was too tense, on the sideline, and I need to be better about that. I have to do a better job, and if I'm going to ask the players to do a better job themselves, then I have to do a better job myself, and I definitely felt that yesterday out of myself.
I sure hope so, Nick. Moving on to the basketball team. The Sixers are back in action tonight for another game in Florida when they take on the Orlando Magic. The team looks to bounce back from a Christmas Day loss to the Miami Heat, but they're going to have to do so without the MVP. Embiid was ruled out again with the sprained ankle. You can hear tonight's game right here on 97.5 The Fanatic at 7 p.m. Flyers fans, the wait is almost over. Flyers begin their West Coast trip tomorrow with a game against the Vancouver Canucks. You can hear that at 10 p.m. tomorrow right here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Keep it locked here for all the latest news and information. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the Sixers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic.
The Philadelphia 76ers play here. Every game home and away. We'll have the play-by-play tonight. Presented by
I know some people are going back to work today. Others have taken the whole week off. I would assume, though. I mean, there was more traffic this morning than there was yesterday. So I would.
Other people are showing up at 8. They get to have fun.
Okay, we're moving right along on that one. But yeah, look, I mean, these days are always. I don't know how you felt, Dave, because we always did some work over the holidays, either here or when we were working for our other outlets. You always did something over the holidays. That first day.
Sorry, I can't even turn it
No,
on.
you would be on the road a lot.
Yes. I always considered holidays or days that I was assigned work.
Okay. Like for me, the summer holidays were that way with baseball.
Yeah. I think part of it also, if you choose to get in the business of sports,
Yeah.
I don't think weekends or holidays. It used to kill me when I was a weekend sports anchor. So all the sports happen on the weekend.
Yeah.
And we had the lightest staffed.
Of course.
This is when I worked in TV. And so I used to say to myself, shouldn't it be the reverse?
They go heavy, especially
Heavy
football
on the
season.
weekend.
Now, the one part of the year that you see sports staffs bulked up on weekends is obviously football.
Yes and no. I mean, I know you're talking about locally because they have a show
Right.
that is built around football. That's different. But when you're just talking about covering local coverage or even national coverage, to that be the smallest staff you have
Never made sense.
never makes sense compared to Monday through Friday. Sports is different. So, I mean, I was always grateful because I was on that staff.
Oh, yeah.
So I always got to cover really cool stuff.
Like to me, Easter, the 4th of July, Labor Day, they were just days others celebrated because during baseball season, you were busy during those times of year.
And a lot of times Easter would have, it can have Final Four weekend.
Yeah, actually, strangely, I was in Louisville with Nova on Easter weekend.
Yeah.
During the 2016 run. It happened on Easter weekend before we ended up going to Houston for the Final Four.
Brendan, you might like this. So one year, Easter was a big, big holiday for my sister's mother-in-law, who is no longer with us now. That was her Christmas. And everybody would go to the shore and all her grandkids, and she considered my brother and my kids her grandkids too, right? So one year we're down there. My dad has to work because the Sixers are playing. And so I had the kids all lined up underneath. They were smaller. They were under the TV. And when he came up on the screen, I took the picture.
That's awesome.
It's one of my favorite pictures. A picture of Pop with the kids.
He's there.
But yeah, it's the first day back after a holiday. If you are, I know for school next week, it's.
But if today is your day back, it's perfect because it's a short week.
Short week. Yeah.
So if you have to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I can handle that.
Yeah, I don't mind this week because you come in, this whole place is empty. It's just us. I mean, so it kind of reminds me of the weekend.
You're not a people person?
I wouldn't say I'm not a people person. I'd say I just don't like all the commotion.
Yeah.
We can throw the balls out there without anybody that actually has the real jobs here getting mad. So.
Oh, they get mad?
I'm sure they're not thrilled with it.
Yeah, well, you work at a sports station, All right. So this as part of our breakdown of the Nick Sirianni, and breakdown may be the right word if you listen to too much Sirianni press conferences after a while. One of the questions that came up was about yesterday. Was the sideline confrontation and how this has been a thing that has popped up a couple times this year, and it was mentioned, I think it was by Jeff McClain again, about the fact that Dom DeSangro helps keep Sirianni from getting involved in those types of spats.
That didn't come up in the press conference.
No, that didn't come up in the press conference, but it wrote.
He wrote about it, that you would not see it as often as it possibly has been there because Dom.
Can shield them
Correct.
in a lot of ways. So yesterday, in a reflective moment to a Dave Zangaro question, followed up by Zach Berman, Nick got a little reflective on kind of what
His
he has to
behavior.
do. Yeah, on his behavior.
I think that definitely starts with me, quite frankly, right? And there was moments in that game yesterday where I felt like I was too tense, and that on the sideline, and I need to be better about that. I have to do a better job, and if I'm going to ask the players to do a better job themselves, then I have to do a better job myself, and I definitely felt that yesterday out of myself. I need to be better in those scenarios. When there's some high pressure areas, they got to see me calm. And not tense there. There's a time and place to be, intense, and there's a time and place not to be. And I know that's something that I always have to work on as a head coach. And so that's something I am constantly working on. And so body language, I think, body language, I don't know. I look more at actions than the body language, I guess, to say, if that makes sense. I know body language is a type of action, but I look more at the action of the players and the coaches and myself there, as opposed to the body language.
Well, he did talk in circles.
It really was uncomfortable for me. He could not get him. He couldn't answer the question and get himself out. He just kept going.
But the question on body language and the vibes is like the word that everybody talks. Who has the best vibes? Like that's a major NFL thing right now. What team has the best vibes?
Oh,
and
body language has always been a huge thing to me.
Okay,
because I'll just give you an example. I used to say to Andre Iguodala, I actually sat down with him one time and talked about his body language on the court and showed him examples of what I thought. You make it seem like your teammates are constantly disappointing you.
right.
And he said to me, it looks like that, but it's really more about myself. And I said, but you're the one who just told me it looks like that. And now here we go a couple of years later, and they draft Evan Turner. Evan Turner has the worst body language too. And so I do it again.
Right.
And the amazing thing is people don't realize what they look like, what they are putting out there.
And that's in all ways of life. My wife always yells about the fact that I constantly have this annoying habit of rolling my eyes.
Rolling the eyes. My mother, hers was more they would jump at you.
Right.
And you knew, like, change your behavior right now because the eyes just came out.
And so I think the delicate balance, though, is you don't want somebody to be, like, so stifled and insincere that you don't, like, part of what made Sirianni relatable to his players and to a segment of the fan base, I'm not sure everybody's ever been fully on board with Sirianni, was the fact that he was kind of a hard-on-the-sleeve kind of guy. But as a head coach in the NFL, I think you have to hold some of it back. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, you know how I feel
I
about
know.
some of the things. Mugging the camera, the things he says he's on the road, he's talking to the Philadelphia fan base when I feel like he's showing up the other fans that are there for their own team. I mean,
Right.
I just don't. I'm not a fan of.
Well, the walk
first
off
of all,
on Kansas City.
And you should not be the story. Your team should always be the story. And to me, too often, like that, I had great respect for Andy Reid. He tries to be in the background, and maybe I'm wrong for that, but the job is the person to organize the group, teach the group, run stuff for the group, and let the group be great.
And I think, and I'll go to you with this on Brendan. You're mentioning Andy Reid, okay?
I just use it.
Right. No, but I'll use the flip side, okay? Part of the reason that Gabe Kapler lost the Phillies wasn't that he didn't know baseball. He was a tremendous baseball mind. He knew the game inside and out. But the annex became exhausting.
Yeah.
And it tired out people. And it especially tired out Bryce Harper. You could, the curveball machine where he rolled his eyes. And with with Sirianni, it's not maybe to the Kapler extent,
Not yet.
and they are still winning, but I do sense that maybe there's some guys who are wearing thin on the whole act.
Yeah, it kind of seems like his message is falling on deaf ears at this point for some players, right? Like the star players, Hassan Reddick's yelling at him off the field. Devontae Smith's yelling at him off the field. Sometimes it seems like they're just saying, Coach, take a step back and just be the head coach, right? Don't go out there yelling. Don't go out there making us, do these weird drills and practice in front of the media when usually we don't do that kind of thing. I think they are getting a little bit fed up with them, but winning cures all. If they go out there and win these last two games and they go out there and win another playoff game or two, then it's going to be kind of hard to go against them, right? Because the results are in the pudding, right? Like if they go out there and win playoff games, then that's all you can really ask for. But at this point, I feel like they are getting fed up with them.
Kev, did anybody ask Devontae what his 2 cents was?
I have not heard that clip.
I did not feel like he was yelling at Sirianni. For me, Devontae added some comment to whatever the conversation was already happening between him and the linebackers.
Right, and Sirianni, though, yesterday, if you remember, or maybe it was on Monday, basically was saying, well, that's just the passion that Devontae has. And, like he may have said it a little more.
He might have. I that's why I was curious if anybody asked Devontae, because he did talk after the game because he didn't seem super happy about other things.
We have a Devontae clip that we played yesterday during the update. In fact, here's Devontae Smith post-game about kind of the standard and living up to it.
Your favorite
11 wins. We're not playing good football right now. As an offense, we're not where we want to be. So, I'm not satisfied. Yeah, we got 11 wins. I'm not happy. It needs to be better for what I want to do, what everybody else in here wants to do, where we want to be. We're nowhere near that. So, no, I'm not happy.
That's when people say this is a media creation. No, this is players telling you that something is wrong here. When A.J. Brown walks out, and look, A.J. Brown's a diva. I think we can all agree he's acting like a diva. But this tells you that there's a deeper issue here than just the media trying to pick something apart.
No, and if you list, come on. Devontae, without even saying anything wrong, you can tell that there is stuff daily not comfortable for people.
When have you ever heard Devontae Smith say anything, right?
No.
Like, you never hear him speak up in regards to anything negative, right? So
He didn't even, when AJ asked for the ball more, Devontae never even batted an eye or said anything bad.
exactly. And now, that's how you know the tensions are rising in there if a guy like Devontae Smith is coming out and saying, I'm not happy with 11 wins because this offense is a joke right now.
And let's also add this into the fact, and we talked about, I've heard Kincade talk about this on the mornings. A lot of the guys, when you draft guys from Alabama and Georgia, you're not used to situations like this. You're not used to
Well, you're not used to losing,
right?
But they're not losing.
But you're also not used to a coach that is here one moment, here another. Nick Saban is tunnel vision. Nick Saban he's miserable all the time, but
So my thing is if you come from there, you've had the best training for any kind of coach possible because it's his way or the highway.
But you don't think it's more difficult? Like if you know Saban's miserable or Belichick's miserable or something, okay, you signed in and you knew that the minute you walked in the door, as opposed to guys here, guys there. Maybe that's an issue.
Well, the only thing I would say, any 18-year-old person who signs on for anything, the way they are treated with kid gloves to get them to go there.
Yeah.
They sell them that.
Well, now it's how much money can you make on NIL?
Well, there's people who, where did I read? Somebody is staying because they can make better money in college football next year than if they got drafted.
That's pretty wild. That's not Caleb, but.
No, it's one of the Power Five, though.
Yeah. This is.
I kind of like it. I think that first of all, it's long overdue. And I think it's the first step in trying to fix. You were the one who brought up Chip Kelly yesterday.
I thought Chip Kelly's comments on that, and you and I talked about it a couple weeks ago, Brendan.
On what he wants.
The state of college football was
it was
incredible.
great. Keep football just football.
Just football.
And then have the Olympic sports, every other sport, play regionally because it just makes sense.
Yeah, like for the
It totally makes sense.
like for the
Too much
softball.
sense.
I hate to give him credit because he used to be. I didn't enjoy going to his, but I told you that.
Yeah, I didn't
His-
mind it because he just gave us fresh fodder, and everybody hated him.
He used to be my most despised Philadelphian athlete, coach, whatever. And
Really?
Oh,
yeah,
for
but
me
then,
too,
then
Brendan. I
Carson
was
Wentz
right.
and Ben Simmons came around. So
Yeah, good point.
Hold on, you really like as somebody who was not in the media at that point. Correct?
yeah, no, in school.
You were in school. You hated Chip Kelly because you like that much. Like he
I
did
felt
make
like he
the
was just-
playoffs his first year, and he did win 10 games his second year. It wasn't
He
like
was
they
just
were a total
so arrogant the
He
way
was
he would
so-
handle things.
yes.
And then
When he talked to people, he was as if he was so much better than the rest of us.
yeah, like he thought he was the smartest guy in the room. Maybe he was, but you don't go out there and handle it that way. And then the way he destroyed, the team I grew up with and got pennies on the dollar. He got Kiko Alonso for LaShawn McCoy. Like
Yeah, that wasn't a good
he
one.
cut Deshaun Jackson based on a report that is ridiculous.
Well, a woman got let go from the office. Do you remember this one? Because she had balloons for his birthday.
Well, the Christmas party thing is the ultimate was the last straw. Apparently, you didn't show up at Jeff's Christmas party. That was reportedly the last straw when he basically said he wanted no parts of Jeff Lurie's Christmas party, and Jeff's like, I've had enough of this guy in year 3. Now it helped that they were also I think 7-9, or 7-8 when they fired him. Yeah,
He was what I would call not a people person.
no.
Very strange.
He was meant for college. He was,
And then he had to go to my alma mater.
but he's still there. He didn't get fired.
No.
I am amazed he didn't get fired because all those reports coming out of L.A. where he was getting fired.
Hanging on.
Hanging on.
His best years were with the Ducks.
Yeah, and I think that's what drives people crazy out on
And
the West Coast now.
Yeah, because there's some people who don't even know what he did at Oregon, but what he did at Oregon was phenomenal.
He had a good program, and having Phil Knight's money helped too. Behind him, at a time even before NIL. I mean, 17 uniform combos and all that. When we come back, Dee and I last year we did this on one of our final shows of the calendar year, and I want to bring Brendan in. It's been an active year in Philadelphia sports, to say the least. Okay, not a title-winning year, but you had the Phillies who made it to the LCS. You had the Eagles who went to a Super Bowl. You had the Sixers. Well, you had the Sixers in the second round. Who, for better or worse, made the biggest impact on Philadelphia sports in 2023? It's time to pick our Philadelphia Sports Person of the Year. That's next. As Kevin Cooney and Dee Lynham and Brendan Gunn, we sit in for the John Kincade Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
You can cut the tension with a knife. I'm Brendan Gunn, and this update is brought to you by Barbera Supports Toys for Tots. Every vehicle Barbera's got
talk in Philadelphia. 97.5 The Fanatic. Now, back to the John Kincade Show on 97.5 The Fanatic, Philadelphia.
97.5 The Fanatic on a Wednesday morning. Glad you could join us here. Kevin Cooney, D. Lynham, Brendan Gunn, all with you on this Wednesday after kind of the hump day, in a sense of the Eagles now will turn their attention today. Matt Patricia will meet the media. Jalen Hurts will meet the media to the Arizona Cardinals. The Jonathan Gannon week has officially begun. Go ahead, Brendan.
I'm looking for killers.
Shots. We've been waiting for this since February, haven't we? So we could just play that clip of.
That was new to me.
That was
You and Matt were talking about it yesterday, and I felt kind of
out of the loop.
Yeah, I was not in the circle.
That was his meeting the players, and the Cardinals posted it on their social media the day he got announced as a head coach.
Yeah, it's the first time literally walking up to Rondell Moore, one of their wide receivers. He's like, I'm looking for killers.
Yeah.
Shots. Pew, pew, pew.
You got speed. That's the other part.
Yeah.
You got speed. You're fast.
So weird.
Yeah, it came across as like very awkward, which is what most of Jonathan Gannon things ended up being.
Well, then, let's.
But I appreciate him a little more.
You do?
I do. Given the defensive turmoil that has gone on with this team this
Oh.
year, I appreciate him a little more.
Appreciate his work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I would say connect the dots. The strangeness of him, he was hired by the guy that we're talking about way too much.
By the way, there's an addition.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they attract what they are.
Just with the defensive line, though, I don't know if they're getting that much more sacks this year with Jonathan Gannon. Like last year, those front four were just getting home. This year, they're not. Now, was it schematically, or were they just better last year? At this point, I don't know. Because
I don't know. One of the recent, in the last couple of weeks, the article about Reddick, where he hates that he's told to go back in coverage.
Right.
You know the one I'm.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
That, and it's funny because I was just reading this over. You know, we made a lot about AJ yesterday and today about AJ Brown not talking to the media. Hassan Reddick didn't talk to the media.
No, he didn't talk to me.
And Jalen Carter didn't talk to the media.
And in fairness, AJ
refused. Not like we're out the door before the reporters got in. Just said no.
actually did. He said, "I was taught if you don't have something nice to say nothing at all," and then kept going. So at least he addressed it.
I'd almost want him not to say that because it just. I respect it as a media member, right? But
I respect it because it says everything.
Yeah,
it is everything you need to know.
There's no hiding about the fact that I'm ticked off.
Yeah.
And that's pretty clear.
Yeah, just as a fan, I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I'd rather just put my head in the sand. As a media member, I respect it. I don't want to hear my locker room's fractured.
Oh, it's too late for that, dude.
Well, let's also be honest, okay? In not our lifetimes, because you and I were around when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 19.
Why do you always have to put me in your lifetime?
Okay. But all right, Brendan is not. Brendan was not around for 1980. But the three times that the Eagles have gone to the Super Bowl, the next year have had a disgruntled wide receiver who made news. Obviously, T.O. with set up.
T.O., yes.
Alshon Jeffrey, who was the reported leaker on was it Josina Anderson was the reporter?
Yes. Whatever happened to her?
She actually works for CBS now.
Really?
Yes.
As a sideline person?
No, as like one of their NFL reporters for their website.
Never
and they're
see
like
her
they're
anymore.
Still doing too much. Like she put out a tweet like, "Oh, she like baits you a little bit." She "Oh, wait till you hear this one." ...
And now
then nothing comes out of it.
And now AJ, who has had a couple pouting incidents this year, which is not as bad as what T.O. did or what Jeffrey did, but at this level at least, it may escalate. But that's at least there's a trend among. It's tough to go back to a Super Bowl. I think we should have learned it by now. And I think we all thought when they were 10-1, wow, this is easy. Even though they're not playing great, they're 10-1.
I'll tell you what, though, the A.J. Brown thing, he can get mad all he wants and be a diva. It does seem like it's team-centric, right? Because this guy's 15 catches away from setting the all-time Eagles record, and he's less than 100 yards from breaking the all-time yards record in a single season. So it doesn't seem like he's worried about himself. It seems like he's frustrated with the team, which is kind of different than, say, a T.O.
No.
You don't think so?
No. I think some of it is AJ.
It's very self.
I think some of it is AJ.
Totally.
Think he wants more touches? Like more yards? Like I feel like he's getting his.
I think he feels.
He doesn't think he's getting enough of his.
I also think he thinks the scheme is not getting him open enough. That most of his catches are way too congested
and way
it's
too
not
hard to earn.
He's getting hit on every single play.
Yeah, and it's like, why aren't you giving me room?
You say he's 15 away. He had 6 this past week. Let's just say he gets 6 and 6. He's going to fall 3 short.
He's going to be mad.
And I'm going to guarantee you there's money associated with the 15, whatever that number is
the record,
that you're saying. That, there's something attached. Well, we said this in reading, I think it was Jeff McClain's. The number of I don't think this is unique to the Eagles or the sport. But there is a fine line between putting incentives into a contract that allows somebody to have the ability to make extra money if you are named to an all-star game.
And by the way, let's also be honest. The records and everything are easier to do in a 17-game season than it used to be.
Yeah. Which is
fair point.
Yeah. I mean, so if he falls short in a 17-game season, he's going to be really ticked off. Really ticked off.
But I think he's going to fall short.
Oh, yeah, because look,
it's just what is happening right now is there's nothing.
Yeah, especially because let's face it, if all things go correct, they have a game and a half, and then most of those starters are hopefully going to get pulled against the Giants because they have the game in hand, and it's the last game.
Although
of the season.
that now, it's strange. Everybody looks at the Niners game as, wow, that's a real benefit for them that they may be able to, rest their starters and everything. If you think of it, the Niners lost the other night. Means that they're going to probably, if they win this week,
have to play that last game.
Because
we're
it could be
flexed
home
to
field
4
advantage.
because we're going to go up against the 49ers who start at 4 that day, so they don't want the 49ers to get that advantage, or if they know the Eagles lost or won earlier in the day.
So even if you can possibly win the division this week.
They could never do what the NBA does on the last day, right? Where everybody plays at the same time. You couldn't do that in the NBA.
Unless you want to do it at 3 o'clock.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But could you do that contractually with your TV stuff?
I think the NFL loves having the 7 hours of everybody watching.
I think they do. But I'm with Brendan. I do think that's one of the cool things about the last day of the NBA. You cannot scoreboard watch.
No.
I mean, you can watch during your game.
But you can't lay back.
Head-to-head.
But you can't lay back because everybody plays at the same time.
Everybody plays at the exact same time.
And baseball does it as well. Baseball does it where everybody starts at 3 o'clock on the final Sunday of the regular season.
Yeah.
And there's not even a Sunday night game that night. Now, there will be a Sunday night game for the NFL that night. It's always fascinating to see what they're going to choose for that last game.
Well, because basically they really should choose so that the people who can be impacted are playing at the same time.
Exactly.
And you hate to say it, put the losers in the other bracket.
It may be
no one cares about that.
It may be the AFC South. It may be the
Commanders,
AFC South.
Exactly.
The Jets.
Yeah. 7 o'clock hour is brought to you by the all-new BetParx app, sportsbook and casino in one sleek, easy-to-use app available in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. My colleague works for Parks and doing their Sixer previews. If you have to see the video, if you have ever seen the videos, which are awesome, get Miss Lynam's insight. Yes, absolutely. All right, we are now approaching the end of 2023. And we mentioned it's been an eventful year for the 4 local teams. I mean, between the Flyers just totally shaking everything up and having positive results, obviously.
Which is amazing.
Which is amazing. And Tortorella and Danny Briere and Keith Jones ought to get credit.
Yep.
The Phillies going back to an LCS. They did lose a series that I think we all felt they should have won, with the 2 home losses to Arizona. And Eagles get to a Super Bowl. The Sixers, getting to the second round, but Joel Embiid winning an MVP. So we're opening up the discussion here. And if you want to join in with your own suggestions, it's at 610-632-0975 of a Philadelphia Sports Person of the Year. Now, the rules on this are simple. And by the way, whatever we pick here will be better than SI picking Deion Sanders as the sports person of the year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Started out good. And then
You can tell, like,
then there's non-relevance.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that fair? Like, good story to start, and then boom.
Yeah, he rose so high so fast, the fall was kind of only going to be bound for that. But I think they'll be all right next year. But he was sports person of October, of September. I can't say the year.
When SI decided to send the writer to Boulder to interview him, and they're like, oh, we can't waste this feature story on Deion, so that's what happened. They chose it before Halloween.
Silly.
All right, so D, I'll let you go first.
What?
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Let Brendan go first.
All right, Brendan, who are you taking?
I'm going to go with Jason Kelsey on this one. I feel like he's kind of just rose into like a folk hero in this city, even more so this year with the documentary. We had his wife out there doing the modeling for the Princess Diana jersey. Like, when do you know any NFL player's wife? Really, you don't see them. That's how much of a hero Jason Kelsey has become in this city.
Pat Mahomes' wife was crying next to Taylor the other day.
You see her for all the wrong reasons. We're seeing Jason Kelsey's wife for the right reasons.
You asked when do you see an NFL player's wife?
I did.
I had to give an answer.
Wrong. And then he has Jason Kelsey. He has his podcast with his brother. He made a great debut on TV. Like, this guy is going to be on our televisions for years to come, and he's going to be a point of Philadelphia pride for pretty much the remainder of my lifetime.
You left out one of the more important designations. One of the sexiest people alive, according to People
Oh my
Magazine.
gosh, I forgot all about that
Jason
one too.
was?
Jason was named.
Yep,
Not Travis.
Not Travis.
Not
Jason.
Travis. Jason Kelsey was top 6. He was featured in the magazine and everything.
Was Travis not in it at all?
No.
Apparently not.
Wow. Who voted?
Jason? That's T that said that.
Jason and Kylie.
No, I find him. I love him.
Yeah,
I'm just surprised that
He made
Travis
it.
was not on that list.
Who knows? But that's a great point, Kev. So I got to put Jason Kelsey as my nomination for Philadelphia Sports Person of the Year.
That's a pretty good one. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go.
Go ahead.
Mine is Tyrese Maxey. I think he is all that should be in professional sports in terms of the way he conducts himself, his enthusiasm for the job, his infectious personality, like meaning you gravitate to the guy. And probably maybe the biggest is I believe it is his presence that makes Joel used to be a pretty grumpy guy sometimes.
Yeah. But he makes him in their locker room.
Maxey makes him a happier person.
And I will say, like, one thing in walking in their locker room this year, Maxey sits at one, like, there's a semicircle. He sits on the side, but it's like within like two lockers of
Two
Joel.
are in between.
Right.
Yes.
And they are funny as hell together.
They are. They
The
yap at
play
each
off
other.
of one another is tremendous. And you're right. I think it's made
Joel. And to me, let's face it. I mean, I'll tell you, Kev, my dad said if he were taking 1-2
right
now in the game, I don't know how you couldn't take these two to start a franchise. He wouldn't take anybody else.
Wouldn't take the 2 in Boston.
He would take 1-2 right here.
Wow.
The 2 in Boston, they don't necessarily get along. At least those are reports for years and years and years. And Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid are like the perfect symmetry on the basketball court. They go together like peanut butter and jelly, it seems like, especially this year.
That's true.
And I got to tell you, I think in April we're going to hear that Tyrese Maxey's the most improved player of the year. I think he's going to get that award.
You know, I originally
for the league.
That's incredible. And he's trending in that direction.
Oh,
26 points a game, more or less, right now.
Like, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts because of the fact that his year kind of sums up what the year was in a sense. If you think of it, he goes to a Super Bowl, he wins an NFC, he was second in the MVP voting last year. You know, he gets to the Super Bowl, he has a tremendous game in the Super Bowl, but they don't win, and he has the major fumble that turns the game on its ear. If you think of it, Then he comes back. He fights through a lot. They're successful. He's in the MVP discussion. But, again, it feels like there's something missing. And it kind of feels like what the whole year has been within the city. It's been good, but something feels off. And that's kind of why I would take Hurts. The other guy, honestly, and this backs up the Sixer point you were bringing.
You're taking two?
I'm throwing another one out. No.
Well, he's in charge, so.
No. Hurts.
His rules.
Hurts is my official. My other option that I considered because of the better or worse would have been James Harden. And I say it for this reason. They're better without him. They were worse because they're better without him within the club, within the locker room. It's pretty clear that what they've done removed a cloud over that team, and it's allowed it to thrive and get better.
Would you have thought that before last summer happened? If you cover, covering them, let's just go back to last year. Would you have said he was a bad guy in the locker room? I wouldn't have.
No, but what you mentioned about like Joel being mopey.
Well, I've seen it.
Right. I thought James was mopey at times last year.
Huh.
I thought, especially when she hit like February, March, when it was pretty clear that there was some contract thing weighing on his head. I think that was pretty. That was a.
See, I don't think that he knew it was weighing yet. I think he thought it was all shored up.
Or even if it wasn't here, I thought he would end up in. He thought.
Oh, I think he thought it was here, and I think the agreement was made.
So you think that whatchamacallit, Daryl put it out there and then it got pulled back?
I mean, I think he definitely insinuated to James, you will be able to finish your career here.
Yeah, there was another player that came out recently and said Morey told him something, and then it was the complete opposite. I can't. I'm drawing a blank on who it was.
It also has happened previously in his career.
Yeah, and look, if you want to say,
well, he's gotten fined for it. He made his deals with Tucker and whatever prematurely.
Daniel House, maybe when they signed here.
Was that who it was?
I think it was two guys he had former. Relationships.
Definitely Tucker was one of them, and he lost 2 second-round picks because of it. So it's not new news that this is part. Look, I don't know how many people make deals on the side, but you can't get caught.
Yeah, I mean, enough people were doing it where the NBA now made a rule where there was that legal tampering period now because it was so well known that GMs were reaching out to players.
But they still do.
They still do.
Yeah.
Which is like silly having the rule. It's the same with finally the NIL makes it. People were getting paid before. It's you just decided who you wanted to
yeah, exactly. It's like
put them on,
Like March Madness went from 64 to 68 and people are now arguing over the 69th best team, right? There's always going to be just on the outside and people are going to be doing.
And next year when the college football playoff goes to 13, it's going to be the same way.
Exactly. There's always going to be someone on the outside and they're going to push the whatever. Like people are always going to
right.
There's always going to be a complaint and people pushing the limits.
Is there little doubt right now, though, that the man who has the most power in Philadelphia sports is Daryl Morey? Just got a new contract.
I would maybe argue Bryce Harper.
I would agree with that.
That's a good one.
Bryce Harper kind of pulls the strings for that Phillies team. If who gets here, it seems like all his boys.
The only thing I'll say, how much power does he have if he doesn't get his extension with 8 years left on the deal?
See, now there's a story for next year. Like
if that's going to happen, that's funny. He's asking for it.
He's asking for it, and there's 8 years left on the deal. But it's because of the money.
Well, because the owner also opened up and said, "Boy, what a bargain!" And Scott Boras is like, "Thank you." Basically, duly noted.
Why?
Why? Because he got exuberant in the celebrations. That he's been worth every dollar and then some.
Oh, my God, for sure. But I'm saying if you're the owner, you should be a good businessman. Why would you open your mouth and say a bargain?
I mean,
But, I mean, I do have to tell you, how the Dodgers will make money, I have no idea. That is a lot of money.
And especially because of the fact that it's a sport that relies so much on the regional sports networks.
And we don't know where that's going.
Quick question for both of you. Neither of you had Joel Embiid, the MVP, in. So I just want to know What was the process behind that? Not having him as sports person of the year. 'Cause I didn't pick him either.
I think mainly because of the fact, and look, and Embiid may be on his way to a second MVP at this point. I mean, I almost hate to say we've taken Embiid for granted.
No, I'll be the first to tell you what the man is doing, and his professional play is off the charts. But if I'm picking a person or player right, what was the phrase?
For better or worse, the person or player, the person who had the most impact on the year.
Yes. So for me, that has to encompass who you are on and off the floor. And there's some stuff there that I'm not the biggest fan of. I think he's gotten away from the trolling, which I am glad.
He had a summer that played a little into the trolling, but it was so chaotic at that point. I don't blame him.
I want to say no thank you to that.
Yeah, he had the whole Trey Turner thing when the fans gave Trey Turner the ovation, and then Embiid said, like, what is this? And he was trolling a little bit.
All right, you want a trolling comment? I actually think that the Turner thing is the most ridiculous thing of 2023.
Terrible.
I do. I think the idea that he was going to come out of it anyway. He was. He's just too good.
Did that make any of you feel like everybody gets a trophy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I feel like that's the current generation of sports fans, for better or worse, right now. They got the standing ovation. Bryce Harper's not kind of held to the fire that former stars were, like a Ryan Howard. Jalen Hurts isn't even necessarily held to that same fire that McNabb was held to. I'd say the only star that is held to that fire right now is Embiid, because he has failed to get out of the second round. All the other stars kind of, I don't want to say get a free pass, but they're not held to the same standard word.
But first of all, Jalen's gotten to a Super Bowl, so that's
and Harper's gotten to a World Series.
And Embiid's gotten to the same place.
Listen, I'm on the side of being lighter on them, right? Like, I grew up despising the fans that were mad at Ryan Howard.
I don't think they get a free pass, but I will say they've gotten way further than the other guy.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan Howard won a World Series, and then McNabbed it.
He threw up
a couple times.
And Don, I think part of what hurt Donovan was Donovan never let go of what happened at the draft. Never. And he kept bringing it up, and Donovan's goofy moments.
Were you up there for that?
No, I was not. No, but
I was.
How was that?
It was weird.
Were you next to the bus that was the bus load that got sent out?
I was not. I was in the auditorium.
Oh.
And then because I was actually the only local media, meaning Angelo was on the bus, I think.
Yeah, he was.
But meaning I was the only local media person, and they took me to the back where all the draftees get taken. And, I get my one-on-one with McNabb. And then the next day, I flew to Chicago, and I interviewed his parents in his house.
This is Wilma before the Chunky Soup commercials.
Long before.
Yes.
And Fletcher, I can't remember his last name. His agent's first name was Fletcher. And I interviewed him too.
Right.
And looking back at the interview years later, you realize how different his personality played out as to the day he was drafted. Like, he was in a suit. He was very composed. He didn't feel uncomfortable.
Right.
You know how he got to some of the stuff he would say was uncomfortable.
I always felt that Donovan would have been great on television, and when he did do television, he was awful at it because he tried to be too cool.
Yeah. And looking back, he didn't come up with that yet.
No.
You know what I mean? He's coming out of college, and he's just a regular dude. Now, he did hear the, Ricky chants or whatever you want to call them. But he would, the way I remember it, he had been prepared for that because it had become such a big story.
Yeah.
So he knew it was coming.
Right.
Yeah.
But it happened. He never forgot
Never forgot it.
And
his personality went
spiraled.
Yes.
When we come back, you hate to think in a negative tone. You know me, I'm always positive. But there is a possibility that Sunday could be a monumental day for four Eagles who have become huge figures within this team and this team's history in the
they're
community.
walking away?
It's a possibility. Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, and Brandon Graham could be playing their last home games in regular season as Eagles. What are their spots within the organization's history? We'll discuss that when we come back here on the John Kincade Show. Kevin Cooney, D. Lynham, Brendan Gunn, all filling in for the crew here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
We're having tons of fun here. I'm Brendan Gunn, and this update is brought to you
Reminder at 8 o'clock, we're hoping to get Adam Schefter on for his weekly spot. We'll talk a lot about what's going on with the Eagles and what's going on around the league, because if you look at it, the league is not good right now. The even the power teams in the league, maybe with the exception of the Ravens, but the Chiefs and the Cowboys, and they're all flawed.
With that win, Lamar Jackson's odds to win the MVP shot to the top.
Yeah, I almost think, especially if they beat Miami this week, that race is over. I would say that he would be the MVP if the Ravens end up with the number one seed in the AFC, because it's a regular season award. It's not.
Yeah, it's not the postseason.
Even
though he and Joel have the same problem.
They can't get.
They can
out,
be the best,
but they can't get out of the second round,
and then they can't get it done in the postseason. Tua's his is shot up there too. He's plus 900.
You see, that's the thing.
Jalen's dropped back. Jalen is plus 2,000.
Yeah, Jalen's not winning.
No, Dak's not winning it
Where's
either.
Purdy at this point?
Purdy, he did slip. He is plus 1,100. His are fifth best. But Christian McCaffrey's second, but he's not. You and I both know he's not. They'll give him Offensive Player of the Year.
I hate the way MVPs are decided in
that
all four sports.
Really?
Because baseball, you have to vote on an MVP before you get to, or before the playoffs run. I almost think at this point,
but
with the amount of electronic voting that's available, you can vote. You can vote a little later.
But they do have an MVP in the World Series.
I know, but I'll use the example that Corey Seager probably should have been the MVP of the American League this year, and yet Ohtani got it unanimously. But Ohtani didn't play a month and a half,
right?
And Seager's team won the World Series. I mean, that does
I see
factor
what you're saying.
in.
You're right. Yeah.
That does factor into it. Like, say what you want about Joel Embiid. Last year, if you let that run to the end,
he wouldn't get it.
Jokic would have got it.
Yeah. Well, he's a champion.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that you always pick the guy for MVP who's on a championship team. I'm not.
No, but in this case.
But in this case, there's something to it.
Yeah, he was the runner-up. And then he ends up with the hardware.
It kind of just speaks to how bad the league is, like Kevin said. I mean, Lamar Jackson, he's the quarterback on the best team right now, but he's ranked 15th out of all quarterbacks for yards, and he's ranked 16th with passing touchdowns. I get he has 700 rushing yards as well.
I was just going to say
touchdowns, but I don't think it's enough to offset it.
He doesn't have 15 rushing touchdowns because Jalen set the record.
Exactly. I mean, he's having a fine season, but if you were to just look at those stats on paper, it doesn't scream MVP in any other year besides this year.
Except for that, if you're the glue guy that keeps a team together that has the best record and can be the number one seed.
There's something to be said, and this is getting to the state of the league. And I guess we could get into this with Schefter at 8. There's something to be said for when you have that dominant team. Like the Chiefs were dominant.
Yep.
The Eagles last year were dominant.
Yep.
That you knew it's going to take a lot to knock them out. And it almost gives you, I hate saying it, like a villain to root against. I don't sense there's that team in the league this year where you're going, oh, we got to go beat this mighty power to get to a Super Bowl or whatever.
It was the 49ers until Christmas night.
Right. And the Niners, 2 of the Niners' 4 losses are at home. And now with Trent Williams maybe being hurt, Purdy got a stinger, so I would expect he'll play on Sunday. The injury issues, honestly, we talk about McCaffrey and Purdy. Deebo Samuel may be the most valuable player on that team because of the fact that without Deebo, they lost 3 in a row. Without Trent Williams, they lost 3 in a row. Those combos, it's kind of undercuts the Purdy McCaffrey argument when you consider those two were removed. And then that's when they had their most sustained period of struggle through the year. But
That's why it's so hard to be out on the Eagles, because there's nobody that is that dominant, right? Like, it's hard to, as bad as they're playing, it's hard to say I'm out, because if they go out there and somehow perform to their best abilities, they can beat any of these teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and we were talking about how resilient they were after the Buffalo game. I mean, because of the fact that they rallied from, 4 straight games where they were trailing at halftime that they won. And, oh, my God, that was Tony Romo and Nance's final call on that game, was the fact of, oh, my God, how resilient they are. And then we've questioned that over the last 3 weeks because it looks like the cracks have formed. So, all right. So I mentioned this going into the break. Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Brandon Graham, and Fletcher Cox, 4 of the 6 Eagles still on this team from Super Bowl 52. Obviously, Jake Elliott's the other one. Can you name the other player, Brendan?
Did you say Lane Johnson or no?
Yeah.
You did? Okay, so it was Lane, Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jake Elliott, Rick Lovato.
Rick Lovato would be the other one.
Way to
left
go,
over.
Brenda.
He had a big play.
Left over from the Super Bowl.
Forced fumble the other night.
Yeah. So but the odds are Lovato and Elliott can keep hanging around for a while, and Elliott signed to a contract. The other 4, there's questions about how much longer this is going to go. Now, Jason Kelsey is the one that I think most people would believe is most likely to retire at the end of the year.
Especially if any of the cracks in the armor are true, and he is just putting up with it to get through the year.
Let's ask. Here's question number 1. Could you see any of those 4 playing for another team?
That's a great question.
I could see.
Brandon, I don't.
No, I could see Fletch playing for somebody else.
In fact, I think you will be playing for somebody else next year.
I could see Lane play for somebody else.
You could?
Yeah.
This organization's been with him for a long time.
And through some tough times.
I feel like he's the most important one to keep around.
I do too.
Well, then keep him around.
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't the
Don't
question. The question is that I think he still has time in the tank.
Yeah, so if they were to move on, I don't think he'd retire.
I don't either.
But so if they moved on, he would not retire. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I don't think they're ready to move on. The question is he ready to move on? He's had the injury issues the last couple of years, pretty significant ones that he's played through, which I give him credit for. But, I think Fletch is the one that's going to play somewhere else. And it pains me because, look, I love Jason Peters when I covered him. I think he's an all-time Eagle. He's going to end up in the Ring of Honor. Watching Jason Peters bounce from team to team is among the most painful things going in professional sports for me. It's almost like watching Steve Carlton pitch for the.
But it is a real part
Twins.
of the era we are watching in sports. Like, if somebody's going to pay you, they're going to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, and look, all 4 of them are going to end up in the Eagles Hall of Fame.
Whatever that's worth.
Yeah, for whatever that's worth. I think there's a shot Kelsey gets his number retired, which is rare among linemen with that organization.
He better get his number retired.
He should. And I would honestly say Fletch probably should, or not Fletch. Yeah, with Fletch. I think Fletch could probably.
It's hard. There's only 3, 4, 5 numbers hanging up there.
Well, because
no,
you
it's
need
a little more because
you need 53 numbers.
Yeah.
You do.
I mean, you've had Dawkins, you've had Donovan get retired the last couple of years. Somebody mentioned the fact that one of the things on the
Number 5 is retired. We'll never have another number 5.
Number 5 is retired.
Wow.
That was hold on. The clip is on here. Number 5 will always love you. That was that was on his retirement night, which was awkward to say the least.
Very. What's worse, that or the strumming of the guitar?
Well, that was his ticket out of town.
Ugh. That was painful.
Because that was
and then he went out there and laid a dud.
Weird.
Oh, that was awful.
Michael Vick threw the only touchdown pass in that game, I believe.
I would like tell me, or it would tell me though. Look, again, I think Kelsey next year is going to be in a booth somewhere. He's not going anywhere. He is going. He's going to retire, but he's not going to play anywhere else. Yeah,
Well, when he retires, he is going to a booth.
If this goes south and the locker room's as fractured as it is, why would he want to come back if it's not fun anymore, right?
Plus
Well, that's true.
Plus, the documentary last year showed how tough it was for him to come back this year, and how tough it was for him to get geared up. And he's got young kids. The lifestyle.
If they won, I don't think he's back. So at least that's what I took away from the documentary. Like if they won last year, he wouldn't have played this year.
No.
So I can't see him hanging on for another year, especially there's going to be some choices to be made if this thing doesn't end up in the Super Bowl.
And they have expiring contracts, and they're gonna have a little bit of an overhaul here at the end of the year. Brandon Graham. Yeah, we talk about the fact that Kelsey could go get a job. Brandon Graham's going to have a job here in some form, you would think, moving forward. Probably in broadcasting. I would imagine that Brandon's pretty good at articulating himself and being on top of everything and has a personality.
Yeah, he'll stick around in the media in some sorts, some way. I mean, he's already great at it when he gets the opportunity. So I can't see him going anywhere.
No, and I think I think the television station would love him because he can.
The only thing I'll tell you, there's not a ton of spots, and
but winning a ring in this town, like he might push somebody out of a spot that's already got one. Like I
know what you're saying. I'm just telling you.
Oh, I know. But yeah, you're right. There's not a ton of spots, but there's also this feeling of he is. Look, my wife's not a huge Eagle fan. She loves Brandon Graham. Like Graham and Kelsey are her two favorite Eagles because she has such a fondness for their personalities and all that. And that's where I think it sets them apart, maybe. Because if you look at Brandon Graham's career, there's other guys who have had Brandon Graham's career as an Eagle, except for that moment in Minneapolis. And the fact that he also is smiling and happy and everything. He can pitch anything he wants. So it'll be fascinating to see if this is the end of this group. And look, baseball has the farewell tours. Basketball, you've seen the farewell tours. Jordan, Kobe,
Doc.
I remember Doc. That was the
Somebody give him a rocking chair.
Now LeBron wants the farewell tour without having to retire. He was going to the Hall of Fame, still playing.
LeBron will have the farewell tour. I can't see LeBron like at the end of the year saying, "Okay, I'm done, no more," and not having the farewell tour.
Oh, he's coming back next year.
Yeah,
he's not going anywhere. He's playing
too well. Yeah,
he's still playing at the top of the game,
which is crazy.
But when he does decide, there will be a year-long ramp up.
Yeah, it's always funny because I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, you saw the dichotomy of it 2 years ago. There was Coach K in college basketball going on his big farewell tour. Meanwhile, the guy right down the street who has been better recently, Jay Wright, didn't tell a soul, and he was out the same year.
You just wanted to get a plug in for Jay Wright. That was just your excuse.
Is he ahead of the fan club?
Oh my God, he is Jay's biggest fan.
Well, good choice.
Good choice. I love Jay.
The man can flat out coach, and he's a good human being.
Now talk about Kyle Neptune.
They bounced back last week with the big win at Creighton. Going to make the tournament.
What?
Going to be some good wins on the resume. UNC. Memphis,
yeah, once they leave the Philadelphia city limits, are actually really good.
You just need Drexel to win 2 or 3 more games here on out, so that loss doesn't look that bad. But
I saw Lenardi had him like 7 seed yesterday.
Yeah, they're going to.
7's fine.
Yeah, that's
just get me some March Madness basketball in the city. Any of these teams can make it, besides St. Joe's. Sorry, D.
Well, I think the Hawks may have the best shot.
St. Joe's are probably the best team in the city right now.
They have some good young talent.
Very good.
Yeah. I'm happy for Billy Lang because it's taken a while.
Yeah, and he had tough shoes to fill out there. Like who he came in after, the resume that guy had. And
so my nephew had to fly back to Detroit
right
after Christmas gets on the plane.
Phil?
He sat next to Phil.
Phil's had an that's a tough go because that situation's not fun up there right now with the whole Juwan Howard looming over them about whether he's going to stay or not between his health issues and obviously there's an HR investigation about his conduct. So
I didn't know that.
oh yeah, there was. There was a room.
Kev reads everything.
I
He always knows about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I read about games and stuff. He always knows the.
Oh, I love the off.
inside.
I do love the off the court. Like the intrigue stuff to me is like
He's-
I
Sports TMZ.
You know, it must be something about
he
this.
loves gossip.
Oh my! I watch TMZ all the time. You know,
I've never watched TMZ.
you've never watched TMZ.
No, I know who they are, but they actually have a channel.
They have a show that
On Fox, I
On
think.
Fox, yeah.
No, I've never.
They
watched.
actually had on Fox. They used to have on Fox Sports 1. They used to have a TMZ Sports, which was just exclusively
Getting the
sports
scoop
gossips.
Sport. All right.
You'd see a bunch of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce on that one.
Oh my.
I am so tired of those two. I really am. Like,
Luckily, it doesn't look like the Chiefs are going to be playing football for the next.
I still think we're getting played.
you do?
I do.
I still buy into she's a double agent trying to sabotage the Chiefs after what happened since she's secretly an Eagle.
I'll take it. I mean, they're not playing good football.
Although
No, they're not.
her father, let's call out Mr. Swift, who was a lifelong Eagle fan
And now he's a.
and is throwing on more Chiefs stuff than like your average Kansas City native.
Taylor Swift herself.
All right. The only thing is, let me just say this. So I think it's fair to be a fan of somebody that, if you're in a relationship, I'm switching my loyalty.
Luckily, I'll never be in a relationship
So, like,
with someone on the
my-
Eagles or another team.
So
because-
my husband grew up in Boston. We all know he's a Patriots fan. He's a Red Sox fan, but he's not a Celtics fan because when he came into the family, my dad was coaching.
That's fair.
So if he was a Celtics fan, he didn't say it outwardly. You know what I mean?
Just hits him with the
But we
little
all know
fist
that he's a
pump.
Patriots and a Red Sox fan.
but the difference is Mr. Swift is sitting there like basically doing the tomahawk chop. You know, he is there like, you know, he is like Mr. Chief now.
All right, well, maybe that's a little much.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you're going to be in that stadium, it is kind of contagious to be part of the chop and everything else.
Yeah. It is. That's actually one of the bucket list places I want to
My
get
husband went and he said it's unbelievable.
I've heard the tailgate scene is incredible. Lambeau's tailgate scene was incredible.
I'd rather him like either be all in or be all out. You know what I mean? Don't be half.
I think he is going half, and so is Taylor Swift, and that's why I can't.
She didn't go half.
You realize the breakup song's going to be outstanding.
I'm not listening.
Oh, that's her thing. She sings about
John Mayer was definitely one of the songs.
Oh, John Mayer has a couple.
Yeah.
her and
They're
Alanis
ruthless.
Morissette is just all of their catalog is basically about their dating life and how it got like, you know, various people who have done them wrong. I guess Carrie Underwood would fall into that as well.
A little bit.
Was it Tony Romo was the one that
Tony Romo
So-
dated her, yeah.
dated her?
For a millisecond.
Millisecond. I mean, he was with Jessica Simpson.
I was going to say that was a little longer than.
Yeah, because he
Fair.
had the playoff scenario where he flew down to Cabo during their bye week and then
Right,
came back and
everybody-
lost.
And everybody was so mad. Like, what are you doing vacationing? But I'll just to go to the like writing of songs. So there was a young woman who I went to a charity event locally, and she was the performer. And her backstory is like she went to LA, nobody would sign her. And then she comes back. She's from Midwest. And then she's sleeping on her friends' couches in Nashville, just trying to get something. Nothing. So she goes back home again. And anyhow, the way she took off was she would sing into her phone when she would make her morning coffee. And she became a huge TikTok sensation. So
Words I never expected to hear D. Lynham say. Huge TikTok sensation.
Yeah, she did. But now, so I go and she performed at this place in Wilmington, Delaware called The Queen, which is a really cool venue.
Yeah.
And I go and I see her. Now she's on tour. And the album is all about the last year of her life where she got divorced. And she's singing all about the guy.
Wow.
And I say to myself, that'd be hard if I'm the guy and I gotta listen to your version of it.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah,
saying
brutal.
I'm not saying it's not true, but it's only one side.
And then everybody else in the crowd singing along to your
Along with
demise.
it. And her tour is super successful. She was just in London.
Yep.
And
Thank God my girlfriend can't sing.
I bought the album.
By the way, I'll end this segment on this note. Mopar on the YouTube chat saying Taylor Swift's name 4 times in the last couple of minutes has cost Beasley Media $17,000. So I think we're going to stop the Taylor Swift conversation at this point. When we come back, we'll get a little bit. We'll get the insider's perspective, but a little bit of an outside perspective from this area on where the Eagles are with 2 weeks left in the regular season. Adam Schefter is scheduled to join us at 8 o'clock. Thanks for joining us here on a Wednesday morning on the John Kincade Show, hosted by Kevin Cooney, D. Lynham, and Brendan Gunn. This is 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
The head coach needs to be better. I'm Brendan Gunn, and this update is brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services, home of the Money Today guarantee. Tax refund advance loans at Jackson Hewitt. Early refund advance offer to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com. The Eagles improved to 11-4 with a win on Christmas Day, which is tied for the best record in the NFC. With that being said, many fans are still unsatisfied with the team's recent performance. Head coach Nick Sirianni spoke to the media yesterday and said he needs to do a better job himself in intense situations.
There was moments in that game yesterday where I felt like I was too tense on the sideline, and I need to be better about that. I have to do a better job, and if I'm going to ask the players to do a better job themselves, then I have to do a better job myself.
Starts at the top, I guess. Moving on to the basketball team. The Sixers are back in action tonight for another game in Florida when they take on the Orlando Magic. The team looks to bounce back from a Christmas Day loss to the Miami Heat.
Talk in Philadelphia, 97.5 The Fanatic. Now, back to the John Kincade Show on 97.5 The Fanatic, Philadelphia.
A good Wednesday morning to you. This is 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Kevin Cooney with D. Lynham, Brendan Gunn. On a Wednesday, heading into Eagles and Cardinals on Sunday. The return of Jonathan Gannon. Go ahead, play it again. I know you want to.
I'm looking for killers.
Shots. That's gonna get overplayed all week, isn't it?
He's awful.
Yeah. So Adam Schefter will join us in a few minutes. We hope, calling in for his weekly segment with John, except it's with us. The thing that gets me about, and thanks, by the way, to everybody on the YouTube chat, Mopar. I know that you think it's not me on there. I have actually been on there a few times this morning to thank them for getting up and joining us. The thing that gets me about the Eagles is the fact that there are teams here that have had a lot of success, but none of them draw the attention, the microscope. When the Phillies are good, the Phillies can get close. When the Sixers are good, the Sixers can get close. But the Eagles all year round is just a nonstop barrel of drama, storylines, energy.
Wait, when you use the phrase get close to what?
Get close to being really good. But the nonstop drama, energy, storylines that go on with the Eagles, to me, is it explains maybe the passion the town has for them on a constant basis, that we can never stop talking Eagles no matter what goes on. Even when they're good, even when they're bad, or even when they're struggling.
Well, first of all, one sport has 162 games, the other has 82, and we're talking about 17.
Right.
So part of it is the sport.
Right. But in this market, especially, like, if you look at baseball as the main draw in New York, baseball's, I still think, the main draw in Boston. Like, they don't get tied up, I think, in the daily minutia with the Patriots and the Giants and all that the same way that we do with the Eagles. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I always tell people, have you lived there? Do you get up every morning and listen to their sports radio?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do have to hear New England stuff if I'm in the car and he's using the app.
Yeah, when you
driving. So
when you hear the New York stations. But one person who hears all the stations, and we are glad to have him on with us this morning, the lead NFL insider for ESPN, and he's joining us courtesy of brought to you by Landis Block and Concrete. Get your own jaw-dropping backyard paradise online at landisbc.com. It's Adam Schefter. Adam, Kevin Cooney, and D. Lynham, thanks for joining us this morning.
Kevin D., what's going on?
Not much. Adam, the one thing that we were focusing on Monday and then yesterday with Nick Sirianni's press conference is the fact that even though they won on Monday night, the Eagles still have problems, and now it feels like, courtesy of the reporting of Jeff McClain and some others, that there's some stuff going on behind the scenes and some tension, and Sirianni said they're having fun, but he needs to work on a lot of things. What are you seeing from your perspective of this Eagles team as we get to the final 2 weeks of the regular season?
They just don't look like the same team. And you keep waiting for that light to go on, for things to click, for them to kind of hit their drive, their area, their stride that they were in last year during that playoff run. And it may come. Like, it may come this week. Keep waiting. And it just doesn't, right? Like, as an example, I'm in a fancy football league. I've had the Eagles defense all year, and I keep saying, well, this is going to be the week that they break. This is going to be the week that they just have one. And it never is. It just never is. And we're down to the last week in fantasy, and we're down to 2 weeks in the regular season and the playoffs. And I'm still waiting. You're still waiting. Everybody's still waiting for that team to click and to become the kind of team that we thought we'd see. Now, they're still winning, and they're going to win the division, and they're going to host a playoff game, but they just don't look right now like the same team that they were for whatever reason. You could say, okay, well, maybe it's the fact that Shane Steichen's not there. He's the head coach of the Colts. Or that Jonathan Gannon's not there. He's the head coach of the Cardinals. And there's no way that can't impact dramatically the offense and defense. But for whatever reason, they've struggled to recapture the magic. There's been a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. The teams look tired. The schedule hasn't worked out great. There have been a couple of injuries. Like, it's all those things. It's all those things.
Adam, do you read into anything like AJ Brown leaves the other night and says, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all, doesn't talk to reporters. Samrek not talking to reporters. Jalen Carter the other night not talking to reporters. Do you read anything into that as a deeper problem within their locker room?
I think you don't talk to reporters. I never buy that. Like, to me, everybody should be professional enough that they can go do whatever they want, say whatever they want. It shouldn't be an issue. But that's sort of where we're at. And, that to me is always a little bit amateur, but do what you got to do.
Adam, I have a question about what do you think the national perception of Nick Sirianni is? Because, well, I'll just take the last game where he gets kind of into it on the sideline, telling Hassan to go back out. Dante gets into it or, has something to say. Last year, he kind of mugged to the camera after one game. What would the I know what we have battles in the city about it, but what do you think the national perception is?
Well, I don't know that the national perception matters, right? I think whether you're local or national, you're looking at Nick Sirianni the same way. And I think here's the deal there. When they were winning last year and rolling and going to the Super Bowl, everybody's talking about him as a coach of the year. And boy, they found the guy, and he's unbelievable. And this year, they haven't been as good, and thus, he's not as good. Now we notice things that basically may have happened last year. Last year, it's like, oh, look at how fiery and emotional that guy is going. Love that. This year, not playing as well, not winning as much. What's he doing? Why is he doing that? Is there a question about him? And these are the things that just happen that correlate with winning and losing. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I really believe that. Like, when everything's going right, it doesn't matter what's happening. Everybody gets a pass. And in this particular case, he doesn't because they're not playing as well.
Adam Schefter joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline. Adam, obviously Jonathan Gannon returns home this week. Well, returns here this week, not home. And look, you were the one who chronicled it from the start that the way he left a lot of unease between both the Eagles and Gannon and the Cardinals organization. Has that all been settled, or is there still some underlying tension there between the two sides?
Between which two sides? I'm sorry.
Cardinals and Eagles, Eagles and Gannon, for that matter.
Yeah. Here's what I would say, that I think all sides have done what they can to move forward in a respectable way. And that's fine. They can and have and will. I don't think that the Eagles fans in the city of Philadelphia will be quite as forgiving, especially on Sunday when he's there. Like, to them, they feel like they were wronged. That Jonathan Gannon had his sights set on that job. It was lined up. It was ready to go. And the unfortunate part there was that if there had been just a little bit more transparency, the Eagles would have been able to keep Vic Fangio, I think. And because there wasn't, and they were waiting for an answer from Jonathan, and they were waiting for that to get done, when I think it was trending that way all along, then Philly could have kept Vic Fangio. And they didn't. And Vic took the Miami job, and the next day Gannon took the Cardinals job. And so the Eagles lost out on arguably as good a defensive coordinator as there is in the league. And they were left to go make another move, which led to Sean Desai, which led to Matt Patricia, which led to them being in the spot they are, rather than Vic Fangio being there running that defense, which would have been great for Philadelphia and great for my fantasy team. And so that's kind of where we're at. Now, do I think the people in the organization are past it? I do. Yeah, I do. I think they remember it, but they're past it. I don't think the fans will be the same way.
No.
Adam, Jalen Hurts, and it probably goes back to what you were saying. When you're winning, everything is fine. When you're losing, everything is scrutinized. But if you were just to look at his play this year versus his play last year, what would be the way you would describe differences in his performances?
I think it's exactly it. It's that they're all in the same category. They're all in the same category. And it's a case where he's been good, but he's played through injury, and they've been off, and they haven't had the leads that they did. Last year they're dominating. And so, you could do whatever you want, call whatever you want on offense, and they're not ready for it. And it makes things a lot easier. So this year, closer games, he's hurt. O-line sometimes hurt. O-line not playing as well. Offense not playing as well. Everything's off. It's just they're trying to find that magic from last year that so far has been elusive. And again, still 2 games to go. We keep waiting for them to have it click. It hasn't yet. It may not at all. But they're hoping and thinking that it can at any time.
Adam, I know you're an NBA fan, so can I ask you, is Joel Embiid the MVP thus far of the season?
He's been unbelievable. I mean, he's been incredible. Luke has been pretty good, too.
Luke has played out of his mind.
Luke is coming off a 50-point game on Monday night. That was pretty good. He's questionable for tonight due to quad tightness. We'll see how that goes. Joel Embiid's going to be right there in the end for it, certainly.
Before I let you go, Adam, last question. Obviously, the Niners on Monday night, I think that stunned everybody the way they got beat by Baltimore. But the injuries, Purdy gets hurt, but the Trent Williams one, they struggle without Trent Williams.
Yeah.
In their 3 losses earlier in the year. Kind of what's his status going forward here, moving on? Well,
they lost, actually, their 3 left tackles, oddly enough. They lost Trent Williams. They lost his replacement once he came in, which I'm going to get that right now. The 3rd string left tackle, Jalen Moore came in,
right,
and then Aaron Banks got hurt his toe, and so it's a tough situation. Now they play Washington this weekend, and they should be able to handle Washington with or without Trent Williams. I'm sure Trent Williams is going to want to be out there against his former team, but they may give him the week off here to rest that groin because it's more important that he's healthy for the long run. And if they could also lock up the number 1 seed, give him this week off, then you win this game. Now maybe you give him next week too, and now all of a sudden you're able to give it the guy a month.
Right.
So we'll see, but they're shorthanded on tackle, and they have to find a way to overcome that.
And it's amazing. It feels like this year you could throw 9 or 10 teams into a mix, and one of them is going to win the Super Bowl. But it doesn't feel like there's a dominant power. Because even the Ravens, I mean, the questions about Lamar in the playoffs, I think, are going to be something that'll, until he proves that he can go win an AFC, it's going to hang over everybody as they move forward. So,
yep, absolutely.
Adam Schefter, thank you for joining us. Happy holidays, Happy New Year. And I know John will be back here on next Wednesday, and looking forward to hearing you guys again. Thanks a lot, Adam.
Appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Yep, Happy New Year. And Adam Schefter was brought to us by Landis Block and Concrete. Create your own jaw-dropping outdoor paradise, backyard paradise, online at landisbc.com. And also, Adam appeared on the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business, a big day. Comcast Business gets you ready for what's next. Yeah, look, I think what he said is right. I think it's, to me, D, part of this is just the result of this, he mentioned Super Bowl hangover. There's a lot of factors that have gone into it, but when you lose, everything's not as good. I mean, it's pretty clear that that's kind of what's permeating, not just with your fan base, but with your own team.
And the funny thing is they only have 4 losses that we're talking about.
4 losses and 3 on the road, which is...
It's respectable.
Respectable. Like, I think if most...
I don't think he understood my question, because I'm just going to say, when it's your guy in your city...
Right.
I think you tolerate more because he's your guy.
Right.
Let's face it. The world hates Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Popovich.
You respect them, but you hate them.
Right. Popovich annoys people. Who are we kidding? But you think San Antonio doesn't want Pop for life? You know what I'm saying? So I think I was just curious of what the outside world thinks of a young up-and-coming guy like
And the
Sirianni.
thing is, and Dee has mentioned it, and Brendan, you have mentioned it as well, the record is great that if, let's say in a year or so, Nick Sirianni is not here anymore, or, a year or two down the road, he's going to get another job.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because, and the personality things will not be really a problem for other teams. Maybe because we're used to it here, this is why we're all kind of like grumbling at this point.
You go out there and win. I don't think anyone's going to care anymore, right? Like I said, if they go out there and win these last 2 games, to go out there, at least go to the NFC Championship game, we're going to talk about a season that was very frustrating, higher expectations.
Well,
but
winning the next 2 is different than the NFC Championship game. Because I asked him yesterday, winning the next 2 wasn't going to change the meter.
It's not going to change.
It's not even going to change my perspective on it. But
right. So winning the next 2 isn't going to do it for us.
No, but if you go out there and finish, because you have to win these next 2 games to get to where you want to be in the NFC Championship game. I feel like you need the 2 seed. So you would have to win these and then win a playoff game or 2. If you get there, then it's kind of hard to argue with the guy that just went to the Super Bowl and then followed it up with an NFC Championship.
Yeah, and made the playoffs 3 straight years and all that. I mean, look, he's done a lot of good things. The question is, does the act wear thin quick, even in your own locker room? And I'm wondering if that's what we're seeing. We could be wrong. We could. But I think we both have seen it enough where the personality can wear teams out.
I said to you the video, like yesterday, they post the stuff from the locker room. And you're never not going to post that stuff anymore. It's just part of sports.
The post-game
your social
talk.
Digital department. That's a necessity in this day and age. But, winning is all that mattered.
It's all that mattered.
And it just felt like his message was falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, it didn't get that ovation. I saw the exact video. It didn't sound like everyone was like, hoorah, let's go, move on to the next week. It was kind of like, all right, let me get a shower and get out of here.
Golf clap. Well, it also, let's be fair. It
wasn't
the holiday.
No, it was more. Your second half was terrible.
Right.
You gave up 22 points, please.
Right.
So you're coming in, instead of coming in hot, you're coming in not hot.
Not at all.
And let me just get out of here and be glad that the W still is the W.
When we come back, Sixers actually return to action tonight in Orlando, but they will do so without Joel Embiid. How concerned should you be about the big man and the ankle, which is forcing them to miss his second game in a row? That's next as we talk Sixers on the John Kincade Show with D. Lyman and Kevin Cooney and Brendan Gunn on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports. Philadelphia.
Happy to join you on this Wednesday morning. This is John Kincade Show. Kevin Cooney, D-Line, I'm filling in. Brendan Gunn behind the glass. You on the phones at 610-632-0975. A lot of Eagle talk today, and the question we've been asking is how worried are you about kind of what's going on on the inside of the locker room that we're finding out now about these little dribs and drabs, and Nick Sirianni yesterday having to mention that, they are having fun, trying to sell that they're having fun. And that's been the main point of the conversation. How worried are you about this carrying over? We just had Adam Schefter on. Was glad to have Adam on this morning. We'll have Keith Pompey on at 9 o'clock from Orlando, where the Sixers will continue. That brings us into our next segment. Sixers will continue their 4-game holiday trip, which used to be to the West Coast. This year they go Miami, Orlando, Houston, and Chicago. No Joel Embiid tonight for the second night in a row. So those conspiracy theorists who thought he wasn't going to play because he wanted to stay home with his kid. Well, no, that ain't happening.
It did happen.
It did happen, but it wasn't just for that. Joe is, the ankle injury from Friday night has kept him out for a second game. And D, the question I have to ask you is they have back-to-backs on Friday and Saturday. I'm almost at the point right now, if you're the Sixers,
you'll see them when you get back.
Yeah, see when you get back. They have 3 straight home games. There's no reason for him to get on an airplane at this point because they could take care of 2 of those 3 at least, you would figure, even without Embiid with Houston and Chicago.
I actually thought they could take care of Miami with no Jimmy Butler and no Embiid.
Right.
That didn't happen. They were out rebounded the other night by 20.
Right.
Hard to come out on the winning end, I think, if you lose by that margin. I think Bam had 8 offensive rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely have to – they got to play well.
Right.
Tobias played very well. Maxey did not. He didn't shoot the ball well. So if Maxey goes out and is 4 for 20 again, it's going to be – Orlando, by the way, is
pretty good.
They've been in front until recently in the standings of the Sixers. They are now 4th, and the Sixers moved into 3rd. They are 4-6 in their last 10, but they've had a good year. And so you're going to have to play well to beat them tonight. They're a very good team at home. They're 11-3 at home. So we'll see.
And this is the first of 3 meetings against Orlando.
Yeah, so you haven't seen them.
You haven't seen them. There's no reason right now to rush Embiid. I can't. I know that you brought up yesterday the fact that there is a numbers requirement.
He's not in danger.
Not in danger of it yet. But the idea that Embiid, who played, obviously he's got 13 straight games of 30 points plus and 10 rebounds, which is 3rd, I think, all time behind Wilt and Kareem, which is pretty good company to keep. So at this point, kind of get him ready. I'm very hesitant about rushing him back from this because ankles are stuff, especially for him and for any big man. If you have an ankle injury and it's bothering you, it leads to other things. And that's where the season can go. If you don't have him for a prolonged period of time, 7, 8, 9 games, that's where you have a problem.
I wouldn't say just big men. You may say that just because
weight,
maybe the weight
height.
of.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody describe exactly his ankle sprain, but high ankle sprains have always been the ones in basketball. I remember back in the day talking to Aaron McKee about a high ankle sprain is brutal.
Right.
It stays far longer. So, yeah, I think at this point that they will play these games, these 4, without him. I'm not saying that's official. We can ask Keith what he's in the gym. They don't have to tell you that he's not playing for the next 2. They get to make those decisions as they go, the day of. But but we know he's here.
Right. He has not flown to Orlando.
No. So he's getting his treatment here. And it just, in my opinion, you're not going to play him back-to-back when he's missed 2 games anyhow. So
No.
you're only flying him for 1 game. I just don't see it happening.
And this is different than the maintenance days that took place in the league.
No, this is a
real legitimate
injury.
And it's strange because I think the league sometimes, by putting the restrictions they did, I get you have to protect your product. You have to be able to sell the fans that there's a good chance you're going to see Joel Embiid.
Well, in fairness, I'll just put Popovich at the top of it. When you put Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and there were 4 on a plane,
right,
and send them home because you want them to rest. 4 guys who were all capable of playing, and they only come here once a year. I mean, moves like that push the league to have to make these kind of things because you're irresponsible with the rules.
And Embiid obviously has been,
he was a load manager.
He was a load management guy, but
no, there's plenty of load management across the board. I have no problem. High minutes guys that occasionally you got to take a day. I actually haven't looked. I'd be curious how many games LeBron has played this year.
Well, and I think also,
I guess it's a high number.
Yeah, I would also say, Brendan, that one of the things that gets me is the idea that the league gets upset though when it's national TV games, especially. I get why they do it, because Turner and ESPN/ABC pay a ton of money, and especially as you get now towards a new national TV deal coming next year. But you can play about the national TV games. How about the local fan who's going out $100? They don't seem to care as much about those games, and I think that's a wrong mindset.
No, I disagree, Kevin.
Okay,
that's,
all right,
that's a big because that's what started this. It was when the Brett Brown's coaching, and they're only winning 18 or 10. I don't remember what season it was when Pop was like, "Well, we can beat them without these
guys."
And that Adam Silver's point is but people paid to see your people.
But they did add a separator rule on games that are nationally televised. I remember seeing that as part of this whole load management.
Could be, but he definitely was concerned about the fan buying a ticket to see somebody play.
Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, you hate to see it when people go out there and get burnt. They spent their hard-earned money, and then the guy they went to see didn't play. Like, that's happened to me a couple times. Luckily, I can get in that building more than some, right? So I get to see my star player. But right now, he's actually injured, right? He's missed a handful of games.
Nobody's ever going to question real injury, though.
No, nobody.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm sure the NBA...
That's the risk when you buy a ticket that a guy may not be there.
But that part was different.
Right.
It was when they started resting people for no known injury reason. And then the other part of this that did factor in, when you went into business with sports books.
Yeah.
You have to be up front.
Yeah, you have to be up front, and they're expecting a certain thing too. So,
yeah.
By the way, so LeBron, let's just go back to 2018-19. Right, 17-18. He played all 82 games. He was still in Cleveland. Now we go to L.A. 55, 67, 45, 56, 54. This year he's played in 28. This year, it would say to me he's on pace to be in the 70s.
Yeah, 28 out of 31. So
that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not what it's been the last couple of years.
And a couple of them were flu games, I know, for him, where he legitimately missed, I think it may have been back-to-back games with the flu. And he said he's going to take time off to go see Bronny play in college, and I get that,
Well, he's in his backyard.
Yeah. But I think there's a road trip set up that he wanted to make. The way he described it was that there were things that, if he was on a road trip to certain places and he wanted to go see him that night and they were playing back in SoCal, he would end up going back. So look, it is amazing though. And D, you're closer to it than anybody. Why is this an NBA problem only? You don't see this in baseball. You don't see. I mean, baseball players take days off as part of it.
Not many.
Not many. Not as much.
I don't know if it's as physically active. Like a lot of the time, NBA, you're up and down the court nonstop.
How about the NHL? You don't see a lot of guys taking. You don't see a lot of healthy scratches in the NHL.
No, but you don't see six
Among your
day
elite
layoffs
players.
like the Flyers just had.
Yeah, that's true.
Flyers haven't played in 6 days until tomorrow night.
Yeah, I give actually the NHL a lot of credit. The NHL, like December 23rd. Okay, we're done until December 28th. Nothing between now and then, which I actually think is kind of cool that they get to spend some time, even if they want to go home.
Yeah, you get a break.
Yeah, and I think they're back today. I think today is the day you can resume practices
And all that. Yeah, I'm sure. Did they travel out west yet? Do you know?
Yeah, well, they're playing tomorrow night, so I would assume they're probably
They're out there
traveling,
already.
or either everybody
Leave
meets
it.
them out there, or they're leaving
Today.
this afternoon. Yeah, because there has to be a charter going out with their stuff. So, yeah, overall, the sense of where this team is at this point, and the idea. Do you think there is an urgency that's going to have to be done for Daryl Morey when we get? In other words, is there an urgency that he has to make a move at the trade deadline, or can he kind of ride it with this group and see kind of where the dice roll?
Well, I mean, you're third in the Eastern Conference standings. You 29 games in, you're usually at 40 plus
Right.
at the trade deadline. I think you know what is around you. You know what you're going to have to go through. For me personally, if the move that he makes, which I don't think he's going to make a big move. That's just my gut, but
He does have the assets to make a move.
he does.
By
The picks are.
like acting out of patience or lack of a trade out there. Do you think he's going to be able to sit back because he now has the contract?
No, it has nothing to do with his contract. For me personally, I'm asking, tell me there's problems with the Eagles. We can identify penalties, turnovers. Sometimes they don't run the ball enough. We can identify. So I'm just saying, tell me the problem what is the deficiency of this team?
It's hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
That's my point. So you're making a move just to make a move because there's a deadline.
At points,
Why would you do that?
you need Tobias to be the Tobias of recent, right? Not the
Tobias of
for-
recent is because he had opportunity. Joel's not there. Field goal attempts are available. The guy delivers when he's given opportunity. When you ask him to stand in the corner, buddy, he does what he's told. So, opportunity. And so my point is, if you think somebody out there who's better, if Zach Levine is better for you in your mind than Tobias, and you want Zach's contract for the next couple of years, exactly.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Thank you. Okay, if you want Markkanen, who is a sharpshooter, deadly, if you want that, and I think his contract, I do believe, is expiring also. But then you're giving up defense.
Yes, a lot of defense.
A lot of defense. So if you tell me this is better than what I currently have, go get it. But if not, don't make a move just because it's popular and I have assets.
Well, I would rather preserve all the cap space and everything moving forward anyway. I'd rather just ride this out. I'm with you. I'd rather ride this out.
Well, the only thing I say, if you know the guy that you like and you can get him in a move, now you have the right, if he's becoming a free agent.
The contract. Yeah.
You can give him one extra year. That's what they did with Tobias. When they traded for Tobias.
Yeah.
He's going to be an expiring contract, but they are the front runners to sign him because he's your property.
Yeah. Because you can offer more. You can do everything that a team that would have his rights going in would do.
Well, meaning if you're going to sign somebody that's a free agent, everybody has the same access to that guy. You can also go over the cap to keep your guy. So there are benefits but you need to know who that guy is. And you got to be able to get him.
Yeah, I'm not for making a move just to go out there and make a move, right? Like, I think the Sixers are solid this year, playing above a lot of people's expectations. And if you go out there and shake it all up.
I mean, I'll just tell you, you know that they have the fourth best three-point shooting percentage in the league?
And that's with Maxey going on a downward trend.
Without one of them being a specialist.
No.
Yeah, they don't have that guy. They don't have
And
the
they-
JJ Redick.
They fourth best.
And it's strange.
It would surprise people.
Brendan mentioned Maxi's not shot the ball as well from the outside as he did last year. Now his role has changed, so that's maybe part of it. But I don't necessarily think a 3-point shooter is what they need. I
I was using that just as an
I
example.
know. I can't. Like, if you told me there's an area like last year, I would say there were a couple areas. The outside shooter was one, and that I would necessarily have bought in. Even bench step, I don't necessarily think that's.
No,
There hasn't been a ton
their
of red
bench.
flags this year, right? The only thing I can look at, I wouldn't even call it a red flag, was the 2 games we won one, lost one, but Embiid and Maxey were the only 2 guys that scored in double figures.
Yeah, that was.
It wasn't necessarily a red
was the
flag. It was just something that
Chicago-
stuck out to me a
That
little
was the
bit.
Chicago Minnesota week last week where they both.
Well, in the one game they had 3 30-point.
yeah, that was
guys.
Friday.
yeah, the one after those. Yeah.
Tobias struggled on
The one
Monday
before.
and Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right. And that look.
And let me say, when we say Maxey having a down, he's still shooting 39 from 3.
Yeah, he got off to a fire start and then
dipped.
dipped. And then it's been
Well,
better.
his game the other day
was not
obviously
very good, not on
helping,
Christmas.
But yeah, it's look, they have the leading scorer. They have a good 3-point shooting. They are number 1 in point differential,
Yeah.
which says to me you beat the teams that are bad by a good number, and you're always in a game against the good ones. Number 1 in differential, better than Boston, better than Milwaukee, and better than Minnesota.
It's impressive. What's it,
number
like
1.
11 points or something?
10.8.
And I'll make the argument. Look, I thought Nick Nurse was a good coach before.
He's good.
Having watching him up close here,
He's
oh my
fun to watch.
goodness, he is. And even defensive,
Smart
they have some deficiencies defensively at times.
Not when Joel's in there.
Not when Joel's in there, but when they
No.
get
He
their
makes up
He's
for
the
the
great
deficiency.
equalizer.
Yeah.
when they get to their second unit, they have issues. But that's a lot of teams, so that's not just something with them. Let me get to a quick phone caller. Graf and Media. Graf, how are you this morning? You're on 97.5 The Fanatic.
How are you guys doing this morning?
We're doing great.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you all. I feel like the NBA should just turn over the Christmas Day festivities to the NFL.
Well, they get it back. They get it back next year because it's going to be on a Wednesday, and I don't see the NFL playing on a Wednesday. So,
No, he wants them to give it to the NFL.
Yeah, just give it to the NFL. I don't know. I don't feel like, okay, Joel Embiid, like we watched him sprain his ankle, right? Like we watched it happen, okay? And then, like if I'm Joel Embiid and I have a hurt ankle and it's Christmas Day, I'm sorry, I'm not playing basketball. Like, I don't know. That's just me. And the week of Christmas, like, it's a little iffy for me there. But I think my biggest point is like you guys are talking about the bench. You're trying to make a point that it's not as bad as everyone's saying. But in the playoffs, like I can't have only Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey dropping double digits. Like I can't have that happen. And unfortunately, Tobias Harris has never been. I've never been a fan of Tobias Harris. He's a little too. What's the word that I want to use here? When someone doesn't do something repetitively. What's the word?
inconsistent.
Passive.
Inconsistent. That's the word right there. So I don't know. I don't think you have to go out and get like a giant name free agent. I think you have a pretty solid team built around Joel Embiid. It's just a matter of finding maybe a shooter or two that can get you 12 points a night. Am I crazy to think that?
No, you're not, Griff. Thanks for the call. I don't think it's that. I think the question now,
First of all, the only having 2 guys in double figures.
that was a couple nights, but that's not been a trend all year.
It's 1 game out of 29, and you have a team that averages 122 points. So Maxey and Embiid they aren't dropping 50 every night. So there are other people scoring double figures. Kelly Oubre was out for a while. He's a double figure guy for sure. It's not even close. And Tobias is averaging 17 points on the year. How many single digits has he had? I bet if I were a betting person and I go and I look, it's going to be 5 or less.
I will say this, and I'll ask this as the wrap up of the segment question. You don't think they have to make a move?
I don't.
Brendan, you agreed. You don't think they have to make a move?
I would say they have to make a move, but my expectations were also not finals or bust this year.
Well, here's the better question. Do you think Daryl Morey will make a move? Will he feel like he has to make a move?
Will Daryl? No, I think.
Will he
he'll-
stand pat if need be?
Well, he was on our station saying that he absolutely thinks they can compete with Boston and Milwaukee, and they're the two that you got to go through. So, and that's with what the team that he's already constructed.
Yeah.
So
February, I'm trying to remember the trade deadline. It's like February 10th or 11th, somewhere in there. It's before the All-Star game.
and
anymore.
just so you know, he's inconsistent, is what the gentleman said.
Graph.
His numbers in the Boston series last year, absolutely down. But I'm going to tell you,
Everybody's was.
so was Harden, and so was Embiid.
His offensive numbers were down, but he was also the main one responsible for Jason Tatum going scoreless in the first 3 quarters and twice.
Twice.
Ah.
But if we go to any series, the one before that, Brooklyn, he averaged 20. In the year before, Miami, 16. And that's when he was the 4th option, by the way. 18, 19, 25. I mean, those are numbers that are higher than what his season averages are.
Yeah.
So I think people just, like I said, I'll look in the break, but he's going to be a guy that probably this year has single digits less than 5 times.
I get the sense Tobias is one of those guys that when he's gone, you'll miss him. You'll miss him a lot more.
You know who was a guy like that?
Oh.
Iguodala.
Yeah.
Iguodala.
And I'll readily admit when Iggy was traded. Well, when Iggy was traded, I was like, okay, time to go. You know, it felt like.
Well, there's truth to that. When there's too much water under the bridge,
yeah,
then that's usually how that
him
happens.
and Doug didn't get along either. Correct.
That's a good question.
Yeah. When we come back, Keith Pompey from the Inquirer will join us live from Orlando. We'll talk Sixers. We'll talk about kind of where they stand as we turn into the new year. And we'll kick around a few more Eagles topics as we get into the final hour. We'll also set the over-under on what time Dee and I take a nap this afternoon from not being used to.
You're making it to the afternoon.
No, I ain't.
I'm not even.
I got the puppy. The puppy will keep me up for a
It'll
bit.
be 12 minutes to get home, and so by 10:15,
I'm jealous. 12 minutes to get home for
That's
you.
awesome.
This is 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update. Official home of the Sixers, Flyers, Union, and the best Eagles talk in Philadelphia. 97.5 The Fanatic. Now, back to the John Kincade Show on 97.5 The Fanatic, Philadelphia.
97.5 The Fanatic on a Wednesday morning. Glad you could join us. Hope you have had a great holiday. Still a lot of people off for the rest of the week. Some, as we mentioned earlier, went back to work today, but glad you could join us here. Kevin Cooney, D. Lynham, Brendan Gunn, all in this morning to sit in for John and Bob and Pat. So it's an ensemble.
Yesterday, I don't even know how Kevin got on this, but he was trying to say that to his knowledge, he is not related to Bob Cooney, who sits in this chair, and Kevin was sitting in this chair yesterday. And so
in his normal chair.
He couldn't come up with, I'll tell you what he said, and then I'll tell you what he was looking for. eHarmony came out of his mouth.
Uh-oh. I'd hope you aren't related if you're running into each other on eHarmony. We're Pennsylvania, not Alabama.
West Virginia.
What he really wanted to say was Ancestry.com. And eHarmony came out.
It ends in a Y.
And
I really hope you aren't running into each other there.
That's going to end up on the clip at the end of the week, isn't it?
It is. Dylan already promised.
Oh, man. That's hilarious.
It was when he came out. I was staring just like I'm looking at you right now. Matt Manarek's face
cracking up.
Almost peed his pants.
He
bright red.
He like, oh my God.
On the television too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was not.
But they both end in a Y.
Both end in a Y. A little different. Wife actually last night when I talked to her, she goes, eHarmony? I'm like, I said it wrong.
Oh, man.
I'm a newspaper guy. I'm not used to talking.
Oh, by the way, Tobias Harris, single-digit games this year. I said 5 or less, right?
Yes.
4. My gut told me. 4.
I got to admit, I've worked with you now a year.
Yes.
You are Tobias's biggest supporter in this city.
I'm an advocate.
Yes, you are.
I don't think I'm off base.
No.
Yeah.
And look, he does a lot of little things. It's just, I get.
It
I
all
get
started because he signed a $180 million deal. That's really.
And he wasn't Jimmy Butler. But that's not his fault.
And it also wasn't Jimmy or him. Jimmy didn't want to be here if you were keeping Ben. So the organization made that choice. You could have had them both,
Yeah. But then you would have had to move on from Ben. By the way, is Ben ever...
I don't know. I told you I saw him sitting in that game the other night in his hoodie.
I almost feel bad because he has a ton of talent.
I think, you know what it reminds me a little of? Bynum. Bynum had that unbelievable year with the Lakers. We trade for him, and the guy never was healthy again, ever.
The Constitution Center party still what gets me on that one.
Thank God I wasn't there. I was in Orlando. I had already planned to take my kids to Disney, and I wasn't dialing back on that.
No, I don't blame you.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have too much money in this.
That's one of those I looked at my. You're having that for Andrew Bynum? Really?
Strange when you look back at who was the other player in it. He just ends up being the sidekick, sitting next to him.
I forgot.
I can't even remember who it was.
That was an Adam Aaron production. I remember that.
It was. Yeah.
And Adam, after that, kind of faded into the background with the organization. He's still, I guess, a partner. But
yeah, but most of his work is for Harris Butcher Entertainment. But in a non-sports related.
Right. And he's still president of AMC Theaters.
Yes.
Joining us now on the Comcast Business Hotline. He's in Orlando. He is a good friend of both Dee and myself. We love having him on the station. And also, I am proud to announce the Stan Hochman Award winner for the Philadelphia Sports Writers Association as the Sports Writer of the Year in Philadelphia. It's
Keith Pompey?
It's Keith Pompey on the Comcast Business Hotline. Hi, Keith. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. What's up, y'all? Thanks for having me on the show.
Not much. How is sunny Florida, by the
Keith,
way?
thank you. Jason Richardson was the other guy.
Yeah.
He served us much better than Mr. Bynum.
He played.
Yeah,
Exactly.
He played
And he was good.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah, he played into. Remember, he got injured because they went to they went to the high school court.
Yep.
And in L.A. and he messed up his knee.
Oh yeah, that was right up the street in Santa Monica.
Yeah, up in Santa Monica. Yeah, but he was a great guy. Yeah, right. And Cooney, you talking about sunny? It's due day. I haven't seen a sunny day since I've been here.
Really? There's nothing worse than Florida in the rain and the cold. If you like, I used to have those days in spring training. It's the worst because you feel like, why am I here? Right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's what it's like. But I shouldn't say that. You come down here to cover a game, but unfortunately, with Embiid not playing these first two games, it takes a lot of out of it because you want to see, what he can do and what they can do as a full team against the Heat and against this emerging Orlando Magic team, and he's not here. It's kind of like, ooh, it's not even a dress rehearsal. You know what I mean?
So that's my first question, Keith. What's the latest on Embiid, and how worried are they about this being a lingering issue going forward?
It's weird because initially it was, hey, everything is fine, and
played on it.
He played exactly. He played on it, and Dee and Kev, both of you guys know. You guys been around the game for a long time and sports for a long time. Is that next day is always the hard one.
Yeah.
And apparently, he woke up, there was some swelling. They want to do treatment, around the clock, so to speak, with it. And they thought that there was a chance that he would be able to play against Miami. And they also thought there was going to be a chance today, but no, he's not here. He's still undergoing treatment, back at their practice facility in Camden. And they have yet to rule him out against Houston. But at that point,
I think he stays.
Talking back to back.
Yeah, he's staying here because you're not going to play him back to back.
No, you're not exactly.
Even if he was the healthiest of health.
Yeah,
exactly. Now the good thing is, I believe after that, they play Chicago again at home.
Yep.
But then they have a couple days off. But yeah, like it doesn't. You talk about ankles, you're talking about swelling, you talk about flights and everything like that. It really doesn't make a lot of sense to bring him on. These were the first two games I felt like that you really needed him to see what you had. Those other two games, nothing against Houston. I think Houston is a up and coming young team.
Right.
But I don't know if I'm just flying Joel out just to play Houston.
I agree. Keith, what would you say has been the biggest influence Nick Nurse has brought to the table?
Wow, that's a great question. It's been a lot. I kind of think that when you talk to the players,
yep,
it's just his ability to communicate with them. I think that's been great. And what I mean by that,
I love it. Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's something that it's something that you take for granted. Like, you always think that a star player will walk up to a coach and say, well, you know what, coach, this isn't really working. I think we need to do something different. Let's try this out. I really like this play. You think that happens a lot, but it doesn't, right? And apparently that's what Joel did to Nick. That's what other players have, asked of Nick. And we're talking in game. And he's like, okay, let's do it. So I think that's been the biggest influence. The second thing is, and I think that, he's a guy that your father would love, right? I mean, he's old school. Right. And what I mean by that is they practice.
Right.
They practice. You know what I mean?
I love it.
And when you look at that, that's part of the reason why, guys are getting better. Guys are, this team is always in the game. They're out there practicing. And in the NBA nowadays, if a team practices once a week, they're doing a lot.
Exactly.
So I think those are the two most things that stand out to me.
Keith Pompey joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline. All right, so we're pretty much near the end of the window where they had to hold on to all the assets from the trade with the Clippers for James Harden. From what you sense within the organization, has anything changed in a sense of, Daryl Morey has said he wanted to kind of see how everything had, and we're getting, within a month of the trade deadline. Do you sense there's a gaping hole they have to fill or want to fill as we move forward here?
I think a lot changed with the emergence of Tyrese Maxey. I mean, I know he struggled the last game, but, if you look at it, there's a guy who has a great chance of becoming an all-star. So with that being said, I think, beforehand, the goal was always to get, a 1A to be able to play alongside, a 1B to play alongside Embiid. I think now what we're looking at is, like, can we get a guard who can defend, that can do some of the less heralded things? Can we get a guy who can come in and be consistently knock down shots? I don't think that the type of guy I think that the 76ers need, if Maxey continues to ascend, is a guy that's, is going to be kind of like a role player, so to speak, but an impactful one, not like, a guy that everybody knows what he's doing, as opposed to a guy that's going to come in and look to get buckets all the time. And the Sixers realize that. They even said that. They said that, when realizing what they have in Maxey has kind of changed their approach. But the one thing that I would say is, even with all the cap space that they have, and I think they know this too, they say this is the year to do it. But if you know that you're not going to make the championship, if you got that type of intuition or whatever sense, that I don't know if I'm about to disrupt what I have right now,
right,
to bring in somebody who might possibly be on the books. Like, leave it alone.
That's what I said. The only reason you do it is if he's your guy on the whiteboard that you want to go get in free agency, but you have an opportunity to get him at the deadline. It just gives you the opportunity then to go over the cap to keep him and give him the extra year. But if you're not sold on that guy and getting him for whatever the cost is, I wait for free agency for the very reasons you just said.
Yeah, I mean, do you think about this a couple of years ago when they went out there and they gave up Cuz and they gave up Dario, they gave up assets for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
You know what? Everything seemed great until after Jimmy Butler left.
Until he didn't want to be here.
And he didn't want to be there. And then you look at these two guys and you're like, wow, you mean to tell me they gave up like two legitimate assets?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Really good
for
ones.
a guy who basically just said, I mean, at the time it was great, but when you look back at it, and a guy who basically says, sayonara, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, nah.
I know.
I agree. And that's I mean, go ahead, Dee, I'm sorry.
No, Keith, I want to look, you're not going anywhere if you don't have Joel Embiid and a healthy Joel Embiid. That we all know that. But is Paul Reed good enough for the 12 minutes that you need him?
See, that's the thing, man. I mean, and that's a great question because, to me, I think Paul Reed has to help Paul Reed out, right? Yeah. I mean, I think Paul Reed, when he's in the starter's role, he gets a little bit anxious.
Maybe
he becomes foul happy.
Yeah, because maybe that's it. Because I'm going off the game the other night, and you're exactly right. Because I saw this guy play plenty in the G League. He never he was really good. I thought I could see the NBA potential in him. But it is true when he steps into the starting line. All right, well, by and large, he's not going to have to do that.
Nah, I'd probably not. Like, I wouldn't be shocked tonight if they started Mo Bamba. You know what I mean? And the reason being is just because, Nick Nurse. Now, who knows? Believe me, I have to believe that they're considering it. And the reason being is because Nick Nurse was basically talking about, well, we're evaluating individuals and seeing how this and that while, getting opportunities when Joel is out. And you look at it, the last two games that Joel has missed, the Boston game, this game, Mo Bamba has played well. I don't even know if he missed the three in those two games, right?
Yeah.
So you look at it, and then you also look at it like a guy is coming home. You guys know how when you come home,
you want to show
about Orlando,
yep.
you want to show. So this could be a game where he gets the start. And the thing about Paul Reed, to go back to that a little bit, you guys know how when we go into the locker room and pregame and you see certain people and you see how their demeanor is, Paul's normally like, hey, what's up, Keith? Well, when you walked into the locker room pregame Miami, he didn't even want to make eye contact. He was so locked in to a point where he looked a little tight to me, right?
Sure.
And so when you see that, two things are going to happen. Either he's going to drop 30 or he's going to foul out. And he almost fouled out.
Yeah, he had 5.
So, he had 5. So it's one of those things where I feel like, Paul Reed, I don't think he's, a starting center in this league.
No.
But I do think he's an energy guy off the bench. But he has to, relax and not put too much pressure on himself.
I hear you with the Mo Bamba because he had the 18 and 6 and made the 3 threes that you talked about. The only thing is, but you have the right guy. Make sure it's communicated to Paul why you're putting him back in the reserve group, because you don't want a demotion when a guy feels the tension that you said you thought you saw in him in Miami. You don't want him to look like,
like he's failing.
Yeah. That we still need you, but this, and you could even sell it. Look, Mo Bamba coming back to Orlando.
Yeah.
Coming off of a good game. Take a little pressure off of yourself.
You go back to your normal role.
Yeah,
basically.
go back to your normal role, and you'll get your minutes.
Keith, by the way, you'll be happy, and I'll show this to the YouTube audience. I have my Father Judge mug up today. But
Lord have mercy.
for a North Catholic guy, you turned out pretty good. I got to say that. So, Keith, enjoy the new year. I'll see you probably shortly after the new year, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, y'all. I really
Happy New Year, Keith.
Happy New Year, Keith.
Happy New Year to y'all, too.
Yep. Keith Pompey joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business, big day. Comcast Business gets you ready for what's next. And also, the 9 o'clock hour of the John Kincade Show is brought to you by The Bagster. Dumpster in a bag. Get yours today at Home Depot and Lowe's. For more details, go to Bagster.com. I've used plenty of Bagsters with my mom's house. I
had to get 2.
Yeah. There is something, by the way. We mentioned at the beginning of the call. There is something about when you're away, and it's not a vacation, but it's a work trip. There is something when you're in Florida and it is cold and miserable that is depressing as hell.
Well, because you automatically assume you're going to sunshine, and it's just not truth.
Like those first couple days of spring training, Brendan, when I would you get down there and you're thinking, golf shirts and shorts and everything.
Ready to go.
And you're wearing your mid, you never had to go to full parka, but like the mid jacket and like your long jeans. And yeah, it's pretty bumming. That's a bummer. I don't even know what I was saying.
eHarmony.
eHarmony, exactly.
Ends in a Y.
Oh, man.
I'm going to start drinking coffee right now.
How about Keith? Before we went to him, he's listening, and he texts me, Jason Richardson, because I couldn't think of who was at that press conference with Bynum.
Just on top of it.
Paying attention. He's paying attention when he's not even on yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
And that's Keith. And again, I should point out, Keith is going to be honored as the Stan Hochman Award winner for the Philadelphia Sports Writers Association.
Brendan, do you know Stan Hochman?
I remember him
a little bit.
I remember watching him on Daily News Live a little bit. Yes.
So Stan was one of my favorites, and an awesome writer.
Oh, he was.
Oh my God. So my grandfather passed away, and following spring, I wanted to do something for my grandmother. They had been married 60-some years, So Stan had a condo in New York, and he always went to Broadway plays. So I'm going to get a limo. I invite my mom and her sisters and me and my sister, and we're going to go to the Northeast and pick my grandmother up in a limo and take her to a Broadway show. I did this for 8 to 10 years.
That's fun.
Every year, the way I picked my Broadway show, Stan, what should I take? Where should I take them this year?
Gotta go here.
He'd tell me, I let him pick my show every year.
He knew what was up.
Because he knew, he went to everything. And my grandmother, he was so honored that I would keep coming back every year to ask him what should I do for my grandmother this year. Yeah, it was really
That's
cool.
awesome.
It was.
Stan also had one of the great moments in Philadelphia movie history.
Yeah, this is
In Rocky V, they had the press conference scene. It was the late Elmer Smith, Stan, Al Meltzer was in it.
Meltzer was
And like they were Tommy Gunn, who was Tommy Morrison, was the fighter. And Stan looks up and gives the scene and he like points at the guy and goes, you know, Joe Smith had so much glass in his jaw he should have been a chandelier.
And that's what Stan sounded like. He was so good on Daily News Live. Oh my God. Because he had perspective.
Yeah.
He had lived and been and seen so many things and written about. His book is actually awesome.
It is awesome.
Gloria, his wife, put it together.
I love Gloria. Gloria's one of the best people in the world.
Awesome. And she went through all of the stuff that he wrote through the years.
Pieced it together.
Picked his 200, I think there were in there.
Yeah.
But you know how the man wrote for
Yeah, she like it's like
decades.
going through with a fine tooth comb, like
Yeah.
trying to find the best stuff.
I have a Daily News Live story with Stan. It was Barkan, Stan, and I on like the final segment, which was like the on a Friday of all things.
Oh yeah, you didn't want the final segment on Friday.
So like basically we were talking. It was before the Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl, right? So Barkan goes,
Okay.
all right, who you pulling for? I'm like, I'm pulling for the Patriots because I love Tom Brady and his girlfriend. You know, like that. You know, just trying to make fun. And Stan goes, you're not going to date her, Kevin. So pick a team.
What a great program. I miss it.
I do.
It was really well done.
Yeah, it was awesome. You got the local beat reporters, all sorts of insiders on there, and it offered a great inside perspective.
And I have to tell you, I can't believe I'm saying this, especially because we're in a world where 140 characters is about all people can handle. But the fact that the show was on for an hour and a half originally,
Yeah.
it let it breathe. So instead of it feeling like, how are we going to fill the time? It had 6 blocks, and you could dedicate time.
Yeah, you got personalities out of it, right? Like
Yeah.
you could show who you were.
And you rotated people through. So like, all right, Kev, you're not on for this segment, but we'll bring you back out for the 4th and the 5th. You know what I mean? And yeah.
Yeah, I think it got my generation at least into. I wanted to follow these guys I saw on TV. Now I want to go read the newspaper, go read the stories that they're doing because I appreciate their perspective.
Although we have no problem with what's on Comcast right now between 5 and 6 and the best show ever, of course. I thought yesterday.
We do have that?
I thought those two yesterday were outstanding.
Oh yeah, they made a great debut yesterday. I got to get their autographs.
I charge. Coming up next, we'll wrap up the show. We'll figure something. It's 97.5 The Fanatic.
back to the John Kincade Show on 97.5 The Fanatic, Philadelphia.
Kevin Cooney, D. Lynham, Brendan Gunn wrapping it up here on a Wednesday morning. Glad you have joined us, whether on the YouTube chat or on YouTube or on the old radio or on the 97.5 app. Glad you've been here this morning with us. We've had a lot of fun. I can't talk in a lot of ways, I found out this week.
We didn't promise our fun. We just
No,
had
we didn't
fun.
promise our fun.
No. Nick,
We didn't even have to talk about it. We just had fun.
We just have fun.
exactly.
We'll get into Nick Sirianni again one more time in a minute. But Damon from West Philly wants to talk a little Sixers. Damon, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Hi, Damon.
Hey, Kevin, D, Brenda, how you doing? Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy
Right
holidays,
back
Damon.
at you.
Oh, wow, man. First of all, yesterday you guys did a great show. I did a good job on the best show ever. And one of the things that the tone of the show, not just from you, but from the callers, is like so solemn. Everybody, it felt like we lost, and I get it wasn't a clean game against the Giants, but Kevin, D, you know that you've seen so many division games. Those division games are always close, no matter what the record is on either side. But
I was waiting for somebody. It took me 2 days in the final segment for somebody to bring up division games. It's division.
No, the only thing for me, Damon, would be that how the penalties and the turnovers, that has nothing to do with division game, in my opinion. It has more to do with the way the Eagles currently are playing. And so that was, but I would agree with you. The tone did feel like, 33-25 wasn't good enough.
Right, but Damon, let's also be honest. Part of the tone's coming from their own locker room. With what's being said.
You guys know, and Kevin, let me just say this. Something you said yesterday, I wholeheartedly agree with you. When you talked about how when they go for chunk plays, like 8 yards here or 5 yards here, that works for them. When they just all of a sudden go for that big play, that's when they get in trouble. I felt like, and the caller from Creekside talked about it yesterday, when the interception and the play prior to the interception, he could have thrown one, but they could have ran the ball then. But listen, they got the win. They needed that win. Moving forward, I will believe that it's going to all come out in the wash because I believe we have the best quarterback going into the playoffs no matter what. So that's why I'm not.
In the NFC or in the NFL?
In the NFC, we have the best quarterback in the playoffs, in my opinion, in the NFC. I mean, Purdy showed his true colors, those 4 picks. That's legit. And no one talks about San Francisco losing 3 games, so I'm not ready to just concede everything to them. I'm just not doing that right now.
No, I hear you. Damon, get your Sixer point in real quick.
So real quick, Tyrese, we know had a bad game on Christmas. What a day to pick a bad game, Reese, but Mad Max is what I call him. So Mad Max will bounce back. But I think you guys talked about it. I like Mobamba starting and let Paul Reed stay in his regular role. One, he gets some foul trouble, and Mobamba has a bit of offensive game, and he doesn't rebound as well as Reed, but his offensive game is pretty nice, so I like to see that moving forward. Hey, real quick, you guys are talking about, before I go, guys missing games. D, I know you're going to remember this. It happened to me. It was Fan Appreciation Night some years ago, Kevin, and Weber and
AI, yeah.
And they were, throughout the arena, D, people were murmuring like, "Where's Allen? Where's Chris Webber?" And I remember that, and it was like, "Oh, they're not playing." We didn't find out until after the.
Not only that, they didn't even come out to the bench.
Damon, thanks, man.
Nothing.
Happy New Year.
And that was when each timeout they would give away like a flat screen TV to the fans, and Al and Chris Webber stayed in the locker room, never came out. I've never seen. Billy King was the president and general manager then. I never saw him the anger.
Ed was upset too.
Ed lost his mind, but not that night. Ed was later because this was Fan Appreciation Night.
Right.
So this the following year. Ed he's out of here.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, look, we this is behind the scenes. We knew people in the organization who had nothing to do with it, who ended up paying with their jobs, and it was not fair, but it happened that way.
It did,
and it was wrong. Because you couldn't drive Allen there. I mean, you couldn't force Allen out of the back room. It's not. It was the end of the era at that point because Allen had just kind of run its course.
It was,
and Chris had pretty much packed it in too. At that point. for his career. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, meaning Weber.
Yeah, Weber.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, during Al's time here, the running mate, like Embiid has a great running mate right now, Maxey. They never got it right for Al. It was always somebody who's just over the edge of their prime, whether you want to say Weber, Kukoc,
Dikembe.
Big Dog.
Yeah. I mean, Dikembe was good.
Dikembe was fine. I mean, because that's who he was. He was not. I mean, his numbers were who he was for his career. I actually think it's a good thing they did that one because they would have. Theo Ratliff never played again, and I don't think you get to the finals without having a starting center.
It's funny that we're talking about this, and Chris Webber brings up to me because he's a Detroit guy or Michigan guy.
Oh yeah,
the Pistons. How would you live through that streak that the Sixers went? The Pistons, though, this is not tanking. This is just we're this bad.
They almost had it last night.
They did, and that's the problem. You get so close. I don't think they can get the one in Boston. I meant to look to say, when will they get it? And I will tell you what happens. The crowd in Boston, media-wise, will be there for
the Pistons.
The Pistons and their history that is being made. And it is brutal because I thought back when I was in it, Brett handled because the media
and at that time
just started to grow.
And at that time, Brett was the dartboard for everything because Sam didn't talk.
No. I told Kevin yesterday I saw Sam Hinkie posted something on social media.
He did yesterday about the Pistons?
No.
Oh.
Just in general.
It actually was about artificial intelligence, which is not surprising. I mean,
I'm not completely convinced that he's not artificial intelligence.
He's a very bright guy.
I was just going to say, I met Sam once. He was a bright guy, but he wasn't right for this job, in this market especially.
Well, I think the fact that he did some consulting with the Broncos.
Right.
But the fact that he has never resurfaced in sports says one of two things. Sports wasn't for him and he knows it, or it's just wasn't the right thing.
It is funny though. I think there is like a little tiny fan base portion that were young and they bought in to the whole process.
Oh,
and
it became
they had
almost
season
cult-like.
tickets and all that.
It was cult-like.
A couple of my buddies had season tickets during that process era, and they always went down there. They bought into that whole thing. I don't know if I was against it, for it. It's very weird.
And his reputation is benefited because of the fact that it was never seen to a natural conclusion. It felt like, well, the NBA kind of came in, pulled the plug, and so he became, I don't want to say a martyr. That's not the right word, but he became like a great what would have been if he had kind of seen it all the way through in a lot of their minds. Not that I think it would have been much different.
No, because the one thing, I don't think his judgment of talent
was great.
No.
The wasted first round picks are on him.
And his way that he liked to play the game was to accumulate as many picks as possible.
Assets.
I purposely. He used a word in a press conference once, and I asked him, I said, is that a real word? Like, well, can I go to Webster and I'll find that? Sure enough, it was. And then I made him a T-shirt. He used the word optionality.
I never heard it.
So I
only heard it once he said it.
I put hashtag optionality on the front of the T-shirt, and I put SBH, his initials, on the back, and I gave it to him.
Speaking of figures, one of the things we talked about for the bulk of the show was Nick Sirianni trying to tell you that all is well. It's almost like the cop in Animal House. All is well. The Kevin Bacon character. Remain calm, all is well. Because of all these reports of Eagles storming out of the locker room without talking to me. And by the way, I thought Shefty was right. You're a professional. Go.
Yes.
It
should be able to, yeah.
But, and how sour that mood was within that locker room. And I almost said Sam Hinkie. No, Nick Sirianni talked about it yesterday in his press conference.
I can promise you we're having fun when we win. I know that 1,000%. There's a difference between having fun and not being satisfied with what the product was on the field, right? The standard, not meeting the standard. And so when you don't meet the standard, you're always constantly going through your mind of, hey, here's what we could have done better. Here's what I could have done better, right? It always starts with you looking at yourself in the mirror. And what's interesting about that is I think that's always going to be a dilemma, because once you set a standard, your goal is not to stay at that standard. Your goal is to get a little bit better from that. And so it's always going to be interesting like that. And there was definitely some things that, there were some sloppy things that happened coaching, playing yesterday that need to be better. And so you think about that to yourself, like, man, what could have been here? But make no mistake about it, I know our guys are excited to win. We're excited to win a football game. But again, it's that hunger. It's that hunger of wanting to, be great and be perfect. But there's got to be a balance, right? There's got to be a balance of, having that, hey, getting the win was the most important thing. And then also that drive to get better after every time you step on the football field, whether that's practice field or the game field.
You and I have covered enough training camp days, whether it be in NovaCare or Lehigh or, well, for me, Westchester.
Oh, my.
I know. They used to do a thing called the Izzy Dizzy drill, which was you basically run around a bat, your head down, and then try to do the.
They used to do that at Sixer games.
Yeah, that is the verbal equivalent of the Izzy Dizzy drill.
I was wrong yesterday. I thought I counted 6 standard, but it was only 5.
Okay. Well, it just echoed in your mind so much.
The standard.
He always repeats. He hammers home whatever he's trying to get there. It was pass interference. It was pass interference. We're trying to get the pass interference. That's what he's doing last week. This week, we're having fun. The other day was the standard. The whole season, it's the standard. But
by the way, if you're going to use percent, what's the right, if we go by the emoji, 100% is the way you go, right?
Keep it 100.
Yeah. So why'd you amp it up to 1,000%?
It's the same thing. You can only go to 100.
Right. So why are you doing that?
Sirianni would have really screwed up marking periods or marking tables on any grading platform that a teacher has. No, look, I just think he's trying too hard to convince us that everything is fine. I mean, and there's something to be said for. I'm not saying you come out and say, look, we're complete, chaos and all that. But there is something for being a little more honest. That, look, we just come through a 3-game losing streak.
We snapped it.
We snapped it. We didn't play great.
Which is the most important thing.
We have got a lot of guys on this team that are pros. We're working through things. That's all you had to say. Except 1,000%. We're, everything's perfect when we win.
He promised me and he gave me 1,000%.
He's just never, ever been up front. So would it be out of character for him to come up and now say something like that?
Well, and the thing is, though, and Schefter mentioned it. We all viewed him as authentic and genuine. Last year, the heart on the sleeve, all that. If you're going to do it that way, you got to do it now too. You got to be authentic and genuine.
Yeah, that's fair.
Good.
My view of him has never changed. I think that the phrase I like to use, and I don't think he ever has done this, act like you've been there and be professional. And I find that lacking. Now, you have heard me, Brendan, that earlier in the year, I thought how far he's come in terms of being able to speak.
In front of a microphone, yeah, but he's kind of going backwards on it.
He's gotten backwards, and I think that is directly tied to the scrutiny that is happening to his team.
So you're saying Jalen's not the only one regressing in that building?
It's easier to go up there and answer.
Not the X's and O's, but the being in the mic, talking to...
Because he's trying to convince himself of the things he's saying. We're having fun. We're having fun.
No, he's not really trying to convince himself. He just cares
about trying to convince everybody else.
Yeah.
You can just tell when someone's lying a little bit through their teeth that it's not very truthful. when you're winning and there's nothing but great things to say, it's easy to go up there and speak, correctly, very poignant and all that.
And there was a clip I actually had Brendan look up, and we didn't play it this morning, about him talking about Jalen Carter. I get when you're not.
His answer for that was not, I don't want you to throw the guy under the bus, but please don't tell me that after the penalty when he played close to nothing. And you're specifically asked. Now, you may not like the question, and you can find in your vocabulary to phrase it differently. Don't say it was punishment, but say, yes, it certainly impacted. And we'll talk about it.
Do you have that clip now?
I do.
All right, let's play it. This is Nick Sirianni on Jalen Carter. His lowest percentage of snaps in any game this season.
No, not at all. Not at all with that. That was, BG was playing a little bit inside there, right? And Fletch was having a really good game. And so some of those, and we weren't in 5 downs, excuse me, and some of their 2-minute drives, we weren't in some of those 5-down packages. So that was more of a product of the style of game and who we were playing at that particular time, with getting BG on the field with Hassan and with Josh, and so that was what the product was of that. Not a result of the penalty. We have a total faith in Jalen. He's had a lot of great moments and great plays throughout this year, and we're going to continue to need him to do those things to be the type of defense we want to be.
Well,
I agree with the last line.
Yeah, I get that. He's had a great year and all that, but this idea that you got to run out Brandon Graham and put him on a tackle spot. Like, honestly, how many times has Brandon Graham played tackle since knocking the ball out of Tom Brady's hands in Super Bowl 52? I mean, you don't do that with a 36, 37-year-old defensive end who, by the way, is viewed as undersized in that role. Now you're going to move him inside? Maybe this explains why the problems they've had on defense. And
by the way, is that his coordinator making that call, or is that Nick making that call?
I would assume it's the coordinator, right? Like
that's Eagles Super
Patricia.
Bowl Eagles Super
or
Bowl
maybe
hero
it's
Matt
the eye in
Patricia
the
again.
sky, Sean Desai.
Did you say eye in the sky?
Yeah, up in the sky box.
Sean chimed in. Yeah, we got to move BG over.
Get back in the closet, like where they shoved him.
Sean Desai's not going to be here in any role next year, is he? I know he's going to get paid. He's got the contract for 3 more years, but you can't bring him back in any.
No, I can't imagine he's going to be back here. Why would he want to be? I know
was
it's not
just going
his
to say
choice,
it was
but
demotion.
Well, he would want to be here because he's still got a contract and he would be paid.
Well, he'll get paid either way.
He can go out there and get a role similar with more input on a worse team. So if I was him, I'd want to leave. And if I'm the Eagles, I don't want him here. He wasn't good.
It's just amazing we've gotten to this point where this team and the thing that Shefty said, when everything was going great, they were sunshine happy, and now it just, fairly or not, look, they can still win the NFC. They can still get home field advantage in the NFC. If Trent Williams is out, I don't know how good San Francisco is going to be against the Rams next week.
And they're back up, too, like Schefter mentioned.
like if you have this many line problems, yeah. And if Purdy's feeling heat now, which I kind of find weird that after one bad game, suddenly everybody in San Francisco has kind of jumped off the bandwagon. But they still have a lot ahead of them that they could do. But they're almost like self-destructing within their own walls. That's what gets me.
I mean, you just can't roll them out, though, because the rest of the NFL, the NFC, it's up for grabs, right? Like, there's no way to roll any team out right now that's in that upper echelon. The 49ers, Eagles, Dallas, Ravens, Chiefs, Miami. Like, any of those teams could go out there and win. The Bills are sneaking back in there. There's no favorite this year. So I can't mark them out, even with all the issues that is going on.
Is it me or... Look, I think every year, sometimes I think when you get older, you sometimes think every team that was back in the day was way better than the one now.
Revisionist history.
All over, yeah. Like, but this is not a great product this year.
Yeah, but then you look, they're scoring 30 points a game at home. It's like, where are these 30 points coming from? Like, I don't remember them ever looking that great. They have, it's the 4th best average points per game at home in franchise history. 30.1, I believe.
Yeah, but it's a different league.
But
It
still,
feels like a different league.
But it's a different league for everybody else. It was a different league the past 5 years, and I don't think they were scoring this high at home, I should say.
Do you have any worries about the Cardinal game?
No, I think they'll win.
Probably be ugly again.
Yeah, I'm not expecting this perfect. There's nothing's perfect. That was another promise and perfect standard. I don't think it'll be. I think there will be some turnover that will annoy me. I think that it won't be this perfect clean game. What did I say? They had 9 penalties. I'd like to know the over/under on penalties. No, I'm serious.
Hammer the over.
I'm of the belief that I think Dallas loses on Saturday night, so I think they're going to win the division on Sunday. I think Dallas loses to Detroit on Saturday night, so I think the division's going to be there and they'll wrap it up. Now the question becomes:
Has Detroit? Didn't they already lock up their spot?
They did, but Detroit's still playing for the number 1 seed.
They are okay. Well, yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're tied with the Eagles and the Niners.
The Niners, right?
So Detroit, and I think Detroit wants to send a message that they are legitimate. And look, this is the way you do it. Because even their marquee win is Kansas City without Kelsey in week 1. So everybody kind of puts the asterisk on that.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know. I think for Detroit, this game is enormous. And I think that Dallas, if you listen to Mike McCarthy on Sunday night.
I try not to.
I know. I was watching it that basically Mike McCarthy said we're going to have to go on the road, which is him acknowledging that they're probably losing the division. So we'll see. Brendan, do you have any concerns about Monday?
No, because my expectations are now set where this team's going to go out there. They're going to turn the ball over. They're going to commit penalties, but they're going to beat teams that are worse than them. So if I'm not expecting them to go out there and score 38 points, then I can't say I'm going to be upset. I've pretty much come to the conclusion they're going to get away with 10-point wins over these bad teams, and I'm going to be frustrated, and we're going to come in here doing the same thing next week, saying, when is this team going to get it together? And they're kind of not, but maybe they're not going to have to this year just based on the rest of the league.
Well, on that uplifting note, reminder, help to support life-saving cancer research. Join me, Dee, John, and our generous partners, H&H Heating and Air Conditioning, making a donation to the American Association for Cancer Research today. Do that at 975thefanatic.com/AACR. Cancer research saves lives. This has been a lot of fun. This has been worth losing a couple hours sleep. Dee, Happy New Year, since we won't see each other before the New Year, I don't think.
No, you're not.
I got night shifts the next 2 nights.
Got you. How about Saturday? Oh no, I'm not here.
I'm
So
here.
right.
I'm here Saturday, leading into the Peach Bowl, which I know Brendan knows is my favorite coach of all time, James Franklin.
Oh my God.
I get to be the warm up back.
I love that he coaches Penn State because they're never going to win.
Exactly.
So Happy New Year.
Is Sun Bowl today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Friday.
Oh,
Friday.
Friday.
So not tomorrow.
So thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our YouTube people and everything. Chunis and Ray Ray are back together. Coming up next. Looking forward to it. I'm Kevin Cooney. That's D. Lynham. That's